Good morning everyone, and welcome to this virtual meeting of South Kesteven Planning Committee. I noticed from the participants that we have two members of council visiting us today in the people of Councillor Breeder Griffin, the chairman of the council, and Councillor Mrs Moran, and I give you both a very warm welcome and hope you enjoy the proceedings. Looking forward to the fullest cooperation of both members and the public, ensuring that our
hang on now, and I'll get back to you later on today.
Thank you.
And that our deliberations proceed in an orderly and professional manner. Can I quickly go to the housekeeping matters? Could I ask that all devices not being used to be either turned off or put on silent, please? Members of the committee and of the public may find it helpful to have their devices connected to the main electricity supply to avoid losing connection to the meeting. It would be helpful if landlines are situated so that if they do ring, they are muted, and that if you have pets, they're not able to access the room you are in, and that other household distractions are kept to a minimum. Now, I remind everyone that of the committee, the members of the committee have control of their own microphones. Please remember to turn them on when you are speaking and turn them off when you finish. Shelley has control of the mechanism for turning off the microphones for public speakers, and please may I ask any committee member and members of the public to have their cameras turned on when they are speaking, and speakers will be advised when they have 30 seconds left to speak and when their time is up. The chat function in Skype for Business is only for the use of planning committee members who want to indicate that they would like to speak. Any members of the public or other members should not use the chat function. If they do, I'll ask them once to cease, and if they continue to use it, regrettably, I would have to remove them from the meeting. Please be aware that you could disconnect yourself if you inadvertently press any of the buttons on your device, but we have IT support during the whole of the meeting should it be needed. If a member or members do get disconnected for more than a few seconds, I will invoke 16.2 of the published protocol, adjournment of a meeting, to enable our IT people to reconnect them. Again, I'd remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded. And as far as I am aware, that every member of the committee and officers are sitting in their own homes. I think head of planning might be in the council building, but everybody else is at home. So can we begin the meeting, please, with a roll call? Are you doing all this, Shelley?
We have Naomi Page. She'll be doing the roll call for members. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Sorry, Naomi. So if you do the roll call, Naomi, that will get us started. Let's start it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I had my microphone under my chin. I've moved it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you.
Right. Thank you. Councillor David Bellamy.
Present.
Councillor Harish Bisnath.
Present.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
Present.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
Present, Mom.
Councillor Mike Exton.
Present.
Councillor Rosemary Cadbury Brown.
Present.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
Present.
We've received apologies from Councillor Charmaine Morgan. Councillor Robert Reid.
Present.
Councillor Ian Selby.
Present.
Councillor Jackie Smith.
Present.
Councillor Judy Smith.
Present.
And Councillor Bob Adams.
Present.
Thank you. So that's all committee members present apart from Councillor Charmaine Morgan.
Thank you, Naomi. Item 2 on the agenda, disclosure of interest. Members are asked to disclose any interests that are not recorded in the register of interest. Does any member have any wish to declare any particular interest?
Yes, Chairman. May I say
yes,
that?
Judy. Yes, Vice Chairman.
Sorry?
Yes, Judy.
Oh, thank you. I know the applicant for application S200065, as he has done some garden work for me.
Okay, well, I'm sure you would wish to say you come to this meeting with a completely open mind as far as the application is concerned, Judy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My usual one, member of the County Council, and they have an interest in the first application. And I think that might apply to Councillor Reid, yes?
Yes, yes, Chairman, that is correct.
Thank you very much indeed. And I notice from participants that we have Councillor Mrs. Rosemary Bellew. I did welcome the other non-members of the committee, Rosemary, so I give you a warm welcome as well.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Any other declarations of interest? Thank you. We'll go on to item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of December. They have been circulated. These are for accuracy only. Is it your wish to accept them, or do you wish me to go through page by page?
Oh, quite happy to propose them, Mr. Chairman.
I've just noticed one mistake, Chairman.
Yeah, who's speaking, please?
It's Helen Crawford.
Yes, Helen.
Mike Exton, of the committee members present, Mike Exton was there twice.
Well, he's a very versatile gentleman.
I know.
Yes, he is indeed. Okay, so yeah, he's at the bottom of the first column of committee members present and the top of the second one. Yeah. But we value both your contributions, Mike. Okay, I'm sure that's been noted. Thank you for that, Helen. I must admit I haven't picked that up. So they have been proposed and seconded as an accurate record. We do a roll call for this, Naomi, don't we?
Chairman, I don't recall them being seconded. Apologies. It's Martha from Legal.
Oh, sorry, Martha. Mike, I did hear somebody second it, but let's go back. Mike Exton proposed, but I have a seconder, please.
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Harish. Martha, can we do this by exception?
Yeah.
If there's any member who doesn't agree or approve the minutes, that they say so in the chat box. Can we do it that way?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay, so I'll give it a second or two for members to indicate in the chat box if they don't approve the minutes. I can't see anything in the chat box. Can you, Martha? Or Shelley? Or Naomi?
No, Chairman.
Okay, so we'll take those minutes as approved. Thank you. So if we can go on to planning matters, there are only 2 public speakers today. Both either as applicants or on behalf of applicants. Agenda item 4, we have Lynette Swinburne, sorry, I beg your pardon, Swinburne, on behalf of the applicants. And then we have Hannah Guy, who is also speaking on behalf of the applicants. Is there anybody who thinks that they have indicated they wish to speak for any of these items whose name has not been mentioned? If so, please advise me now. Okay, so I will take that. Hello?
Chairman, sorry, it's Councillor Moran. I did write to Democracy stating I would like to speak on the market deepening application. I don't actually recall getting a response from them.
Okay, could you tell me who you sent the email to, Councillor, please?
Yeah, if you bear with me a second, I will look at my emails. I wrote to DM Planning Support. The second time I wrote was the 6th of January and said I don't appear to have had any acknowledgement of this, of my request to speak. Please can you confirm you've received it and ensure I receive a notification of the date it appears before committee. But
did you submit your presentation to the committee, please, Councillor?
No, I didn't. No, I wasn't aware I had to do that.
Yes.
I don't need to speak if you don't want.
No, I would. That's not to stop you speaking. We will have a look at what went wrong there, but yes, quite happy for you to speak. But just to remind you, you have 3 minutes, and we have to be pretty strict on that in keeping to the time.
I'll be very quick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll move on to application item number 4, which is the Queensway one. Bear with me. And this is in the presenting officer, Phil Jordan, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just pressed the button to upload the presentation, so can you just confirm when that's appeared on your screen?
Yes, it's on the screen now.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning and Happy New Year, if I haven't seen any of the members already. So this first application is S18-1557. It's an outline application for residential development for 40 dwellings and associated garaging, with details of access included for approval. The application site is on the site of the former Church High School site in Grantham off Queensway. As already introduced, I'm Phil Jordan, Principal Planning Officer at South Kesteven. So just before I start with the key issues, there was one minor change in the additional items report, which just updated condition 3, which related to the correct version of the illustrative plan for the site, which included an area illustrating some on-site surface water attenuation. I have got a further verbal update to include. We've had a late representation from Anglian Water requesting a condition relating to foul water drainage details, and I'll include the detail of that further on in the presentation. So the key issues for the development is the principle of development, affordable and market housing need, any impacts on amenity, highways issues, flood risk and drainage, impacts on ecology and biodiversity, open space provision, and then just the general section 106 heads of terms. So the site itself, this just gives a bit of an overview of the part of Grantham where the site's located. So broadly speaking, the site is in the northeast part of Grantham. You can see roughly outlined there where the red line is. For members that are familiar with the site, it was the former Grantham Church High School, which was before that known as St Wolfram's School, secondary school, which has now been closed, demolished, and joined together with Priory Ruskin Academy. So just to the east of the site there, you can see the Alma Park Industrial Estate. To the south of the site, you can see the SKDC owned Harrowby Lane playing fields. Further to the north, you can see that sort of residential part of the Sunningdale estate, and then beyond that you've got Vale Garden sort of industrial building and Parker Hydraulics, and then the golf club above that. So this just sort of shows that same overview but zoomed in a bit further. So to the north and east you can see that sort of relatively new development within the last 10 years, sort of the later stages of the Sunningdale estate, Hoy Lake, St Pierre Avenue, Portrush Drive, that sort of surround the development site on the north and the east. And then to the west of the site you can see sort of that older post-war sort of former council estate along Queensway. So just a couple of photos looking into the site. You can see the school's been demolished. That was done sort of about 6 years ago, back in 2014, and then you can see some of that new housing beyond the site. From the same sort of viewpoint, looking over to the east, you can just see the back of those Harrowby Lane playing fields, and part of the football club, and then again some of that new housing just in the far distance there. So the site itself, this is the red line of the site. It's really it's the developed, or the previously developed part of the site, the footprint of the former school, which is in the ownership of the Diocese of Lincoln. The wider area around the site is in separate ownership, and that really comprises what were the parts of the former playing fields associated with the school. So this plan's been submitted, and as I said, it's been updated. It is just indicative. Other than the access arrangements, all matters are reserved for future determination. So just bear in mind, this is just an indicative layout showing how those 40 dwellings could fit within the site, and it has included that additional area for some surface water attenuation, and that's resulted in the decrease in the amount of space that can be developed within the sites. So the outline application that was previously approved on the site was for up to 44 dwellings, and that's now been reduced to 40 dwellings. So this is the late representation we've had from Anglian Water. They effectively just confirmed that the local foul water facility does have capacity for the flows within the site, but they've just requested further detail of the foul water drainage scheme. So that'll be an extra condition to those detailed in the main report and the additional items paper. So really just going through a bit of sort of evaluation and picking out some of the key points that are included in more detail in the main report. The sites previously had outline consent for 44 dwellings. That was granted in 2014 by Planning Committee. The scheme now has a slightly reduced amount of dwellings to 40 to take account of that additional space for the on-site surface water attenuation. The indicated split between market and affordable homes is 32 market homes and 8 affordable dwellings. That's in line with the policy requirement for 20% affordable housing. Detailed matters of appearance, layout, scale and landscaping are reserved for future determination. The access arrangements, which really just take the previous access that was used by the school into the site, are considered acceptable. There's been no objection from the Highway Authority or no issues raised in that regard. The indicative layout, it is just indicative, but it does allow for the access road does allow for connections to that wider area, but equally it doesn't infer that development of that wider area is acceptable in any way. But also important that it doesn't sterilise that land, should a wider scheme come forward. The drainage strategy has been considered acceptable and looked over by the lead local flood authority. As I've said, I've now included that extra condition around detail of foul water drainage as requested by Anglian Water. So really just some of the headline figures that would be tied into the legal agreement. There's a contribution of nearly £136,000 towards education provision. The NHS formula requests £26,400. And then there's some sort of different open space contributions. There's an amount for informal open space, just under 14,000. The outdoor sports space probably seems higher than we normally have. That's after consultation with Sport England, and that takes account of within that previous school site there were 2 on-site tennis courts. So as well as providing for the provision of the people that would live on that new development. It also takes account of the loss of those tennis courts. So there's an amount there of just under £70,000, and a contribution towards equipped play space as well. All those obligations would be tied into the legal agreement, and as we don't have the pooling restriction any longer, the intention within the legal agreement would be to prioritise them towards the nearest facilities related to the site. So, for example, with the open space contributions, they would go towards Harrowby Lane area, but then there'd be some wording and mechanism that would allow them to be spent in a slightly wider area if projects didn't come forward within the requisite time frame. So, in general terms, there's been no objection from any of the consultees on the scheme, and therefore the recommendation is to approve as per the recommendation in the main report, including the updated conditions in the additional items paper and the one that I've just verbally reported in relation to foul water drainage. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Phil. There are no public speakers as such, so could I ask, bear with me, I'm getting my papers all the way all around my neck this morning. It's Lynette Swinburne, please, on behalf of the applicant. Lynette?
Hi there.
Bear with us a minute while we get, sorry. Okay, Lynette, please.
Chair, committee members and officers, my name is Lynette Swinburne. I'm a chartered town planner and I'm the agent for this application, which has been submitted on behalf of the Lincoln Diocese Trust and Board of Education and the Lincoln Diocese Trust and Board of Finance. The application for this site in the eastern part of Grantham represents an opportunity for the redevelopment of a brownfield site to create 40 new homes. School buildings have now been demolished and consent was granted in 2015 for a very similar proposal. We are now seeking permission again for this sustainable site. Grantham is at the very top of the district's hierarchy for growth, and the fact that the site is previously developed also means that it offers an ideal location for new housing. The scheme can contribute towards local facilities and services by offering 8 affordable homes, over £150,000 towards education, over £26,000 towards healthcare, and nearly £110,000 towards open space and play space. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the case officer, who's actually the fourth to take on this application since its submission in 2018, for being so proactive and working to move this proposal forward to a decision. I hope that you agree the application is an important opportunity to deliver new housing in Grantham. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynette. Do any members of the committee have any questions for Lynette, please? I'll take that as a no. Thank you, Lynette, for being with us today and for that presentation. Any questions to the case officer, please?
Yes, Bob. Put it in the chat.
Oh, sorry. Shelley, could you keep track of the chat box for me, please? That would be helpful.
Chairman, certainly.
Thank you. Right, so right, yes, Ian.
First of all, Bob, did you say there was a second speaker on behalf of the applicant?
No.
Okay, so it's just okay. First of all, thank you very much, Phil, for the presentation. I've got 4 questions for you at the moment, and then I've got some comments to make in when we come to the debate. First question is, Phil, it states on page 32 of the report that the previous application for 40 dwellings has lapsed. However, on page 35 of the report under 7.18, it says, further, although lapsed, the site has recently been granted outline consent for 40 dwellings with the same access arrangements as now proposed. Well, that contradicts on page 32, doesn't it? So can you just tell us, please, what is correct on that, and if it has been granted 44 dwellings, when did this actually happen? Because I know nothing about this, and it certainly hasn't happened while I've been on the planning committee. That's my first question.
Would you like to do you want each question answering in turn, Ian, or
please, Bob,
how do you want to deal with it?
Individually, please, Bob.
Thank you. Phil? You're muted, Phil. Thank you.
Sorry. The previous consent was under reference S142837, so it was perhaps the word recent is what's confused it in there. That was granted permission in September 2015. Typically, when we grant a permission, it has 3 years to, or the applicant has 3 years to implement that permission. So the 3 years would have lapsed September 2018, and then that led to the resubmission of this current application, which has been with us since 2018. And as the agent said, it's been sort of passed between several officers before ending up with myself.
Okay, thank you for that one, Phil. So really the word recent it's not really recent, so it's just the wording on 7.18 that's in question. Okay, the second question is reference to the kiddies play area. Now, although you've as you've said that it's an indicative plan that's been put forward, I was just wondering why even with an indicative plan that a kiddies play area has not been shown on that. However, he did say the money could possibly be used elsewhere. I mean, I know we've got a nearby kiddies play area on Harrowby Lane. Can you just give us a little bit of info on that, please, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I perhaps may bring in the agent on this. I don't necessarily want to confuse things at this stage, but typically what we do when we look at contributions for open spaces, there's a formula which based on the amount of development, and it then tells you what space should be allowed on site, and then it also equates it into a financial amount that could be spent off site. In this case, 40 dwellings would typically sort of prompt quite a small amount of open space, so you can get a situation where actually the space you require on site isn't particularly usable or effective, and where there are existing amounts of open space within walking distance of the site, it can be appropriate to then ask for the financial contribution. So we have done it in the past where we've allowed flexibility for both of those things, and that's why I was going to ask the question. I don't know whether the agent would consider that an on-site amount of space or the financial contribution could be written into the legal agreement, or whether in this case it's just they're happy and it's considered appropriate just to put the financial amount in. But my own view is that given the large or very large area of open space that is also in the council's ownership, very close to the site and well within walking distance, I think the financial contribution in this instance is appropriate. But yeah, if it's okay, I would just sort of ask that question for the agent's view, if that's okay, Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely fine. Lynette, are you able to respond to that, please?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not in the same room as my client, so I can't take their instructions, but I think we would be willing to look when it, in terms of section 106, we could look at flexibility, certainly. So I don't think there's any issue in principle, but I would need to clear it with my client. But I do agree with Phil, we are in very close proximity to open space, but there's no issue in principle in a sort of a flexible clause within the section 106.
Thank you, Lynette. Ian, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And just to say that I do know of a relatively nearby site that really, which I don't want to go into today, that really could do with a little bit of financial input for kiddies' play area. So,
that's for a discussion outside of this meeting.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Bob.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, my next question, my third question, is the Public Health England website has an interactive map on it for radon. Now, I've mentioned radon in the past at planning meeting. Now, this particular area is in a radon area of 10 to 30% bracket, which is, I believe, the second highest of the Public Health England's sites, areas. We are in a high radon area. It doesn't mention anything in the report about radon. I'd just like to ask about the impacts and any mitigation that would be considered for this site, please, as radon is a cancer-causing agent, and so just like your views on that, please.
Yeah, my understanding with the radon is that we have a constraint layer on our maps which shows where or what the likely occurrence of radon is. And then that informs putting a note on the permission. So it's not a condition, but it advises the developer that they are in an area where there is a higher sort of likelihood of radon, and that then informs the building regulations requirements for the site. So where there is a higher risk of radon, they have to use a slightly different construction method for the floor slab for the building. That's my understanding. So we don't condition it in planning, but we put a note on the permission, and then that note then informs building regs and the construction methodology for the site.
Absolutely. There certainly should be mitigation in place for that. I do know of a property in Grantham that they can't sell because of radon issues. Anyway, that's another issue. But the fourth question at the moment is who owns the dogleg, and also the small gap to the access to the dogleg. What's the distance of that entrance to the dogleg, please, Phil?
Sorry, so the first question around ownership, my understanding is that the wider area around the site that was previously the playing fields was in the ownership of Lincolnshire County Council, and again, as far as I understand it, that they're currently undergoing a process of looking to dispose of that land, but I don't know if that transaction has happened or who is involved in that transaction, but certainly the owner, as it was at the time the application was made, was Lincolnshire County Council, so they own the playing fields, and it was the diocese that owned the actual school building part of the site. The question about the dogleg, can you just explain a bit more what you mean about that? I didn't quite understand.
Well, there's sort of like a dogleg, isn't it, around the application site, and there's a small part. If you look at the plan that you put forward, that shows the indicative plan.
Oh yeah.
Ian, we should only be considering the piece of land which applies to this application. I don't know that.
Very relevant to my future comments that's coming up with during the debate, Bob.
Yeah, I think without having the exact measurement in front of me, the strip that goes around, so the properties that are at the back of Hoy Lake, the site boundary there, and then the boundary of this site, it looks to go to about as small as 10 metres, possibly at the top a bit wider to between 12 and 15 metres.
Okay, I'll come back with further comments during the debate on that. Then, thank you very much, Phil. Appreciate it.
Any other members got any questions for the case officer, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Shelley, could you tell me who's next indicated they wish to
Yes, it's
ask questions?
Councillor Bisnating. Yes, thank you.
Harish, Councillor Bisnating. Harish, please.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just coming on. Thank you, Jordan, for the presentations. I've got 4 questions. They're more or less very similar to the line where Councillor Ian Selby put in. The first one, the playing field, will that form part of the open space? Just simple questions. Will forming part of this development? Do you want me to give you all 4 of them and then?
No, I'll do one at a time if that's all right. It's easy for me to keep track that way. Yeah, the first question. So you've got 2 bits of playing field really. You've got the playing fields that were previously associated with the school, which are outside the red line, and then further to the south you've got Harrowby Lane playing fields, which are in the ownership of SKDC. Neither of those sites are currently within the red line of this site, but what those off-site financial contributions allow us to do is to, I guess in simple terms, money from the uplift of the land value that would be sort of gained through developing this site. It would provide money to upgrade and enhance those existing facilities. So whilst it's not directly within the development site, there is a way of effectively improving and incorporating that land to the benefit of the people that would potentially live on this site in future.
Yeah, because there's quite a lot of building and a residential building all around the place, and quite a lot of children probably would love to have an open space where they could play all sorts of great activities there to spend some of their energies. I would like that to be probably maybe more proactively encouraged to be developed as it is Lincolnshire County Council.
Well, I think the point's been noted, Harish, but it is outside the scope of the application, but I'm sure the point's been noted.
Okay, well, question 2, that refers to paragraph 7 on page 36, 7.3.4. It says that appearance and landscaping are not included in the considerations. I thought that should form an integral part of the actual of the general appearance of this development, because considering that they are building or nearby to give it its own distinct character. Why was it excluded?
Well,
could I ask, has this been to the design pad before coming to committee?
It has at one point in time, but I guess the point about it is an outline application with, they're only seeking permission for the principle of the access really. And so we've got full control of those details of layout, appearance, scale and landscaping through any future submission. So if a reserved matters application came in, for example, in 2 months' time, if this got approved, it would have to come back to committee. And it's really that detailed design stage when really design pad would look at the, getting into all the detail of what materials are going to be used, exactly how that layout would look, what landscaping treatments there might be around the site. So it's not that it's been ignored, it's just that it's not part of this application at this point, but it's we've got full control of those details, and at some point in the future, if this site is to be developed, we'll have to consider those details.
So it would go back to design, pad before it came back to us.
Yeah. So no, that's where design pad really comes into its own on the reserve matters submissions, where we are looking at that level of detail.
Well, I thought probably it would be better if it is included to give us a better view and understanding of what actually we are trying to decide upon.
Harish, just for complete understanding, we will get that information when the reserve matters come back to us.
Okay, thank you.
This is one of the issues of outline planning consent, Harish, which we won't go into, we're not part of the discussion. It's something I'm not comfortable with and never have been, but and I know members share that view. Can you move on to your next question then, Harry?
Okay, that's again maybe related. This paragraph on page 37, paragraph 7.4.2. It is impact on the private views and the which is not a material, not material planning consideration, but I think given consider the proximity of the other developer, other houses, residents currently established community there, I thought probably with regards to privacy that should have been a consideration.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. The impacts on privacy, impacts on residential amenity, they are material planning considerations, and again through any future full application or reserve matters application we would be looking carefully at the scale of development, where the windows were placed, what the separation distances were, all of those things. But the specific point around, at the moment I look across a field and I'm going to end up looking at houses, that isn't a material planning consideration. And that's been well established by case law that's not something we can take account of. But things that directly impact on amenity, as I say, loss of light, loss of privacy and so on, they are things, and again they will be considered through a future application.
Okay, thank you. My last one and is again on the same page, paragraph 7.5.3. I'm very pleased that electric charging points is included, but how many of them are included for this very medium-sized development, please?
So just let me check the exact wording of the condition. So yeah, what we've been doing for this, it covers a few more things than electric charging points as well, but condition 5 effectively requires the developer to submit details showing how they would comply with policy SB1, which is the sustainable building policy, and one of the requirements of that is to include electric charging points. So again, we've got full control of those details. And I think, for a residential scheme, it's generally, appropriate that each dwelling would have an electric charging point or an ability to charge an electric car. So sort of even when this gets approved and when we get to that detailed design stage and they're looking at actually progressing with the build, we would have control of those details, and we would be able to consider at that stage what the appropriate number of charging points would be.
So this will be for public, as you mentioned, probably each of the building will have a charging point, which is very good, very excellent if that can be implemented, because 2030 is not far away when we are removing all the petrol and diesel cars.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully some of them might not even have a car. That's the, and the other things we would look at is, including cycle storage. Once we get to that detailed design layout, as it's been made clear, it's a very sustainable location. You could easily live on this site and walk to local shops and facilities without the need to own a car. So yeah, we definitely want to encourage and provide for the future in terms of electric charging points, but as I say, that there may not even be a need for some of the occupiers to have a car at all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry. Shelley is the next member to ask questions.
Chairman, we've got a comment in the chat box from Councillor Moran about asking to speak. I don't know if you could clarify.
With respect, Councillor Moran, the Constitution doesn't permit that. So I'm going to, and at this point in time, it's for members to ask questions of the case officer.
No.
Any more questions for the case officer, Shelley?
We've got Councillor Phil Dilks next.
Councillor Dilks, please. Phil?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think Councillor Moran was talking about another application, not this one, but I still respect your ruling. Mr. Chairman, my question has been answered. It was about the. I just wanted to confirm that this is an outline and it will come back on reserve matters. I welcome what you say. I would, however, like to comment on that aspect in debate. If you want me to do that now or wait.
Now let's deal with questions to the case officer, Phil, and then other points in debate. Any further member indicated they wish to ask a question of the case officer, please, Shelley?
Councillor Penny Milnes.
Councillor Milnes, Penny, please.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Phil. We're now realising the problems of outline planning permissions and applications, and really they're just for access only. This particular site, we've got an indicative plan, which I think we now know is effectively meaningless. How do we control when it gets to reserve matters, things like the affordable and market property proportions? How do we control the associated garaging that's being proposed? These are just examples. And should we be putting criteria on that conditioning now about the sorts of things, maybe as a result of the debate, as to how we would like to see this site being developed? Not obviously details, but these sort of issues that are coming forward. Secondly, the links to this wider area, this dogleg, as Ian calls it, doesn't seem to show any joined-up thinking about developing that old the playing field and the school site, which I know it's in different ownerships, but is one site in many, many ways. Should there be some sort of master plan? Should we know what's going to happen to it? Could we put open space into there? Who decides this and when, and how do we control that? So I'm just saying I'm very wary of these outline planning permissions, and I'd like to know how we keep some element of control. Thank you, Phil.
I think we've got to be careful here. We can't talk and comment on land adjacent to this. We can only consider what is in the planning application before us, Penny. So Phil, if you think you are able to pass any comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand the concerns and the points that have been made. I think the bottom line is that those details, whether it's reserve matters of this site alone or whether it's a wider development proposal that incorporates some of that additional land, they would require planning permission, and so that they would have to come back to us for consideration. And given the scale of the site, it's going to constitute major development, and therefore it's going to come back before committee. I think it is a sort of a difficult route to go down to try and overly control things at this stage, and where we've done that in the past, we've lost appeals on that basis, and I think you can run into the risks of putting conditions on which don't meet the tests, and that would put the council at the risk of costs and so on. So an example of that is if we sought to control details relating to layout at this stage, it's just not necessary, because layout is a reserve matter, and so any future applications, they've got to submit those details and we'd have to consider them. So imposing controls around layout at this stage, it isn't necessary, and therefore fails one of the conditions tests. And the guidance around conditions is very clear that if you're putting conditions on which aren't necessary, they don't meet the tests, and like I say, you run the risk of being considered to be unreasonable and putting the council at risk of costs. So I think you always want to, in an ideal world, we would know exactly what was going to happen with this site up front, and we'd have all the details, and and if the wider site is going to be developed to master plan, but in this case there just isn't the policy requirement for that, and in any case we've got control of those details. So at this stage, this is really an exercise in this landowner establishing a principle for developing this site. It allows them to sell it, dispose of it, or join up and consider a bigger development if that's something they want to do. But all of those eventualities are really something for another day. At this stage, it's an outline application with details of access for this particular parcel of land. And in addition to all of those things, we've previously granted consent for almost an identical thing. So yeah, that's really where we are with it. As I guess, as frustrating as it might be, or wanting to have those details, we just have to wait for those to come at a future date.
Thank you, Phil. Any further questions, Penny? No?
No, I wasn't so much thinking about layout, but for example, the property proportions, affordable market. We're told one thing now, but we get something else later on.
Well, that we can determine when the reserve matters come, Penny. Can we?
I mean, okay, I'll leave that big question mark hanging over our heads. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Penny. Shelley, any further members indicating they wish to ask a question of Phil?
No further questions for the officer, no.
Thank you very much. Just for clarification, Councillor Moran, was Councillor Dilks correct that your comments are referring to the last item on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on. Move on to debate. Shelley, are there any members indicating they wish to contribute to a debate?
Yes, we've got Councillor Ian Selby, followed by Councillor Phil Dilks.
Thank you. Councillor Selby. Ian, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bob. Glass should be half full, in my view. Can we just ask Phil if it's possible to put up for us the plan that's we've got on page 31 of the report? Is it possible to put that up for us, just so that it makes it easy for what I'm referring to?
I can't, just bear with me. I presume is that the indicative layout?
No, it's not. It's not, Phil. It's the plan that shows the area and also shows the site and the dog leg and the surrounding area. Can you see the one I'm referring to, Bob? Page 31 of the report. That's the most helpful one, I think.
Let me just...
Yes, your aerial view, I think, is probably the one that Ian is looking for.
Yes, it is, Bob. That's the one. Thank you.
That's the one.
This one, Councillor Selby?
Not quite, but it does cover it, so that'll be fine. Thank you. Right, the first point, going back to why I asked the question about the ownership. Now, if by any chance it is the county council that owns it, county council is a public body. I'm hoping that the Lincoln Diocese is a community organisation and not just a purely financial and a developing organisation. And if the county council do own that, then I would like to think that they could get their heads together and come up with something better. And as Penny's pointed out, there's no joined up thinking, and that was precisely my thoughts. This is not making best use of the area in question. So that is an important point that I think needs raising. Next point is, there we go. It mentions in the public's comments that there's different levels. I was going to ask you that question, Phil, but apparently there's different levels on the sites. Now, we can't really see that without a site visit. And also, I'm going to request deferment on this for a site visit for whenever it's an appropriate time for that to take place. So that is one reason for deferral. And also to view the dog leg and all that in question as well. Also, something that's I went and viewed it again yesterday, something I viewed yesterday, and I have to say, you can take that down now if you like, Phil, thank you. But the entrance to the site in question, it is a very narrow entrance. We're talking of 40 properties. That's on average 2 cars properties. That's 80 cars. 80 cars that's coming out onto a narrow little road that goes onto the Queensway estate. Now, yesterday, Mr. Chairman, I went and viewed the surrounding roads, and I'm absolutely appalled. Appalled, Mr. Chairman. I don't know whether you can see, but on my iPad, there's a pothole. It's 6 inches deep, it's 2 foot wide, and that's just one. It states here in the report, page 37. Page 37. I'll read it out. It says, development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or the residual accumulation impacts on the road network would be severe. Well, the County Council at this moment in time cannot maintain Queensway and all the surrounding roads. Those potholes I'm referring to, and it's appalling.
Ian, I understand where you're coming from. Can you keep your comments to the application, please?
It's relevant to the road network and surrounding road network. And those potholes, they go back to October. They were reported. They were reported again yesterday. Reported numerous times. So
Ian, we're not talking about potholes, please. Please.
Okay,
Bob. Keep your comments to the application.
It is relevant to the application because it's the surrounding network roads, and when you've got 80 more cars coming on there, and you're also going to have the construction traffic as well. I say the highways can't maintain what they've got there without adding extra traffic to it. And I'd like the planning committee, please, to view this site at a suitable time. So therefore, I'm proposing deferment, please, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much indeed for listening.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Dilks, Phil, you've indicated you wish to speak in the debate.
I did, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I'm glad that we clarified, given the questions that were raised, particularly those with local knowledge from Councillor Selby. I'm glad we did clarify that the reserve matter, this is an outline application, and the reserve matters will come back to this committee after they've been to the PAD committee. So I do welcome that, but I've got to say I am disappointed, that we've had this application 2 years. I do appreciate that there's been a churn in case officers, and I've got the hugest respect for Phil Jordan. I think we all have. But I was disappointed, I've got to say, that we get to the committee hearing and we're talking to the developer, to the agent about 106 money, and I'll have a word with the client and see if that's okay. So I'm just saying it's all a bit sort of messy, if I can say. So that's why I do welcome the fact that it's coming back. Key issues, as on the front page of the agenda, key issues are listed as open space, so that is very relevant to this outline permission, so should really be sorted out now. And I do have sympathy with having been last night on local Facebook here talking about potholes. I have huge sympathy with the highways and transport infrastructure issues that have been raised by Councillor Selby. They are key issues, highly relevant to this committee. We all know, of course, that the highways answer will never be that they think that the impact is severe on the but it is relevant. I also regret in this application that there is only 8 out of 40 affordable homes. I appreciate that why that is. It's because we have got a policy of reducing the requirement to 20% from the normal 30% requirement. It's only 20% in Grantham, but that means that we lose 4 extra affordable homes in Grantham, where I would suggest they are most needed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are my comments. I've got huge, I think Penny focused us on the main concerns with, the application leaves a lot of questions, and that's why I welcome it coming back. Obviously, we all are, as Councillor Selby said, we're in a difficult position because we haven't been able to look at the site. I don't know it at all, I've got to say. I'm from the south of the area, as you know, and it is a difficulty. So I have huge sympathy with those, particularly with local knowledge like Ian Selby, raising these issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Phil. I think we're highlighting this problem of outline planning consents, which we can't do a lot about. Perhaps we need to be looking at very carefully at the local plan and what we can put into the local plan in terms of design and so on. But that's a conversation discussion for another day. Shelley, who's indicated next, please?
Councillor Robert Reid.
Councillor Reid. Robert, please.
Thank you very much, and hello to the committee. Because of the county council implication, I should be abstaining from voting, but I have listened to debate, and I would like members to be focused on their reasoning for either deferral or whatever they're going to make, that it's compliant with planning policy, because the debate hasn't suggested that criteria to me, Chairman. Thank you.
No, I'll take your point there, Robert. Next speaker in the debate, please, Shelley.
We've only got a proposal in the chat box from a proposal, a seconder from Harish Bisnal Singh for the deferral proposition.
Okay, so Ian Selby has proposed deferral and Councillor Bisnal Singh has seconded it, yes? Is that correct, Shelley?
Yes. If Councillor Bisnal Singh could confirm, please.
Yes, I can confirm. I will second the proposal, the deferment for a proper site visit, because I feel I agree with Councillor Selby and probably Councillor Penny Mills and Phil that this site could be better developed for better benefits of the community. There's quite a lot of things that is lacking within it. I think by having a deferral, having a view when we can go and visit the sites, will give us a better understanding of it. But in the meantime, the Lincolnshire County Council could take it on board to have the community in mind when they're designing. It's welcome to have the houses and probably increase the affordable homes to 30%, not 20%, out of that, because we need those.
Thank you, Harish. Okay. Sorry, Martha, you've indicated you wish to perhaps a point of legal consideration.
Yes, please, Chairman. I just wanted to just offer a few words to committee members in terms of following on from the last councillor's comments, and obviously the proposition currently on the table is deferral. We need to assess the application that is on the table. We cannot think about what if or may come forward in the future. There is an application on the table, and the committee is under a statutory duty to determine that application. Yes, they could look, to defer an application, but to defer an application should only be done where they require further information in order to enable them to determine the application. At the minute, in deferring just to see if something else will come forward because the applicant might speak to LCC doesn't constitute a solid or reasonable ground to defer, in my opinion. Additionally, talking about potholes and the state of the roads surrounding the site, those potholes exist. They don't necessarily result from the proposed development. Any mitigation from this development will be to address things that raise from this development. LCC, as Highways Authority, have said that they are happy that this proposed development could go here without impacting upon the roads. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Martha. Can we go back to Shelley and any further members of committee wishing to speak, Shelley?
Yes, we've got Councillor Rosemary Cabry-Brown, followed by Councillor Phil Dills.
Thank you. Councillor Cabry-Brown, Rosemary, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I know that we actually did do a site visit here. It may have been 2015, it may have been 2016, but we certainly did a site visit when it was first noted that it would be coming, or we would have a planning application for it. The reason I remember it so well was my car broke down on the site, so it had to be pushed off, and most of us that were there were delighted that at some time or other in the future there was going to be a decent housing development there. Now, I have to support Councillor Penny Milnes, because we seem to have too many of these outline planning permissions coming forward that we do pass, and then instead of being presented with 40 houses, you'll suddenly find out you're presented with something like 56 houses, and then the answer to this will be, oh, well, you wanted more affordable homes. I think we have got to be very careful with this, but certainly, just to remind you, Mr. Chairman, a site visit was definitely done. I'm not saying all of the committee were on it. It probably changed a lot since then, but I certainly was, and I do remember the site. I would like to just put forward here that if they are contemplating a tennis court, I think it'd be extremely good, because people in that area do not have anywhere for adults really to do any leisure facilities, and also whoever owns the tennis courts will find it very profitable, I think. So, looking at all aspects of this, I just wanted to put that in, that over the years we did do a site visit, and yes, it does need building on as quickly as possible, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Are there any further members wishing to speak that haven't already spoken, Shelley? Shelley?
We don't have any councillors that haven't already spoken in debate, but we do have, sorry, just come through as Councillor David Bellamy wishes to speak. Jeff Upton has also requested to speak.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was requesting to speak now that we have a proposal on the table.
I've seen that, Phil, and I'll come back to it. But we'll take Councillor Bellamy first, and then ask Jeff Upton to make whatever his contribution might be. Councillor Bellamy, David?
Well, my only point is that if we do pass it as it is, there's nothing wrong with us in the meantime in approaching the county council, which seems to be the logical thing to do to me, to proactively approach the county council so that we can maybe at a later date get a proposal for the whole site on the table.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Bellamy. David. Jeff Upton, please.
Hi, Chairman. Yes, thank you for letting me contribute. It was really backing up, probably timely, that Councillor Bellamy just made the comment that he did, and also Martha's contribution earlier. I'm picking up some of the concerns that have been expressed just about the outline nature of proposals. It is, as members will have seen, a necessary part of our consideration, assessment to look at schemes at an outline stage, and I think it's appropriate. We've got, as Phil Jordan went through earlier, a range of conditions within the recommendation that set out the different areas of further information that will need to come forward to satisfy us in detail before the formal full detail is approved. Clearly, the agent of the applicant is online today, will have heard the issues raised by members. So in considering those reserved matters details as they come forward, those comments can be taken into account as those things are developed. And we've also got, as we referenced earlier, other processes whereby we can assess those reserved matters and further details in due course before they are formally assessed. The other point was that wider point around the broader area, and yes, that's something obviously we've heard today in debate and discussion by members. So that is something to take forward separately from the assessment of this application, as Councillor Bellamy just picked up, and we can take that into account as we move forward as well. So yeah, we need to clearly make a consideration on the detail we have in front of us at the moment at this outline stage, but given the history of the site with the previous approval and its update through this current application with the current policy set, that's why the recommendation is in front of you, Chair, members, today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Now, Shelley, are there any further members who haven't spoken yet?
I can't see any members that haven't spoken yet. We have further requests from Councillor Phil Dilks and Ian Selby.
Okay, so we'll take Councillor Dilks and then for Ian Selby to wind this particular debate upon deferral. Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the highways matters, I think we could debate that as to, and I don't wish to debate it any further. But transport infrastructure is a key issue on this application, and I think the state of the roads surrounding it are relevant. That said, I did want to say, reply to what Councillor Harris said about if we defer, we might be able to get the extra affordable homes. I don't think we could, because I was just pointing out that it is, I regret, but it is policy of the council that we only require 20% affordable homes in Grantham on developments in Grantham. So I don't think we'll get that. What concerns me though about deferment, and I'd just like to ask Jeff or Phil where we are on this. What concerns me is if we defer, this application has been sitting around for 2 years, or has been with us for 2 years, are we open to a non-determination application if we don't determine it today? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Phil. Either Martha or Phil or Jeff, please. Would one of you like to answer that point?
I can answer it.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously well outside the statutory time frame for determining the application, and there is always the risk of non-determination appeal if we don't make a decision, and the associated cost risks if we've been considered to be unreasonable in that approach. I think the point about the site visit, that they are always helpful, but from the site visit I undertook, that the site is largely flat. We would have control over levels details through any future submission in any case, and so I think where those concerns were raised about potentially if one bit of land is marginally higher than another, that can be a factor that can impact on some of those residential amenity issues, but equally it can be designed out, and so there's nothing at this stage that, in my mind, making a decision, we don't lose any control over those future issues that have been raised as concerns by members.
Thank you, Phil. Ian, would you like to wrap this up, please?
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. Now, first of all, this is a major development. This, whether you like it or not, this is actually backland development. And I've raised the issues for deferment on planning grounds. I did mention the site levels, which I would like to view. You can't get on the site because it's gated and there's a padlock on it, so you can't actually view it without a site visit. And I say a major site visit like this, although a previous committee in the past has viewed this, things do change. We are a different committee, we are different set of eyes, and I don't want to be responsible for something that another committee's viewed in the past. So we are a totally different committee, although one or two members probably do remember it. So I'm asking for a site visit, I say, not just for the site levels that Phil's just touched upon there, also, as I've mentioned about the joined up thinking. I hope that the Lincoln Diocese, they are a community organisation, I would hope. So I would hope that they're going to be community minded and thoughtful towards us in that respect. And also the highways issues, I would like the committee to view the infrastructure on the approach to the site, so that they can actually view for themselves what this is all about. So for planning reasons that I've highlighted, for the sake of an extra few months, I don't see what the issue is, and I don't see how we can pass this as a committee, a major development, without actually viewing it. It does not make sense to me, that doesn't. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Proposed development, and thank you very much to Harish and to the other members that's been speaking.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. So we're now going to move to the vote on deferral. And I would ask members to bear in mind the comments made by Martha Rees and Jeff Upton, please. So Naomi, if you could move to the vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor David Bellamy.
Against.
Councillor Harish Bisnarsingh.
For.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
Against.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
For.
Councillor Mike Exton.
Against.
Councillor Rosemary Cadbury Brown.
Against.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
With great consideration, against.
Councillor Robert Reid.
Against.
Councillor Ian Selby.
For.
Councillor Jackie Smith.
Against.
Councillor Judy Smith.
Against.
And Councillor Bob Adams.
Against.
Right, I can confirm that the deferral proposition was not carried.
Thank you very much indeed, Shelley. So we now move on to the recommendation by the Principal Officer to approve the application subject to the conditions and the additional comments about the drainage, etc. Could I have a proposer, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will propose to accept the recommendation.
Thank you,
that's mine.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Jackie Smith. Do we wish to have any debate, or have we covered all the points in the previous debate? Are there any speakers, please, Shelley?
None indicated in the chat box. I'm not sure if Councillor Milnes is trying to speak, though.
Are you trying to contribute to this debate on approval?
Yes, I was having trouble with my little cursor. Sorry about that. Yes, I think we should approve this. I think, though, there are lessons to take from these sorts of applications in our debate, and I would like to caveat it with taking those lessons forward for further discussion and see what we can do about certain elements.
Thank you, Penny. I think we've all got a lot of sympathy with what has been indicated. Jeff, you wish to come in?
Yes, it's only a minor point, Chairman. Just in moving the recommendation, there was an additional proposed amendment in the additional papers for condition 3 in terms of the approved plans. So yeah, it was just just that really, it shows the on-site surface water attenuation feature. So the recommendation as set out in the published report plus the update and the additional information. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. Penny, do you want to come back again?
Yes, it's just prompted me, Jeff, saying that. I do understand that in the previous permission there was a travel plan requirement. I don't know if that's still relevant today, bearing in mind the issues raised about the infrastructure in the area.
Phil, can you respond to that? Or could that be done? Could that be done under reserved matters as well?
I mean, to a large extent, I think the travel plan probably informed the previous recommendation, and I think the condition that would be relevant in this case, well, a combination really, is details of the reserved matters and some of those sustainable building measures. So I think there are opportunities to include things like provision, as well as the electric charging points, things like the provision of cycle storage and so on, once we get into that detailed design stage. So I think, I think again, we have got sufficient control over those matters, and we can't really force the habits of the people that are going to live there. We can only, I guess, really guide them through the design of the scheme, and some of the other things that have been debated around improving the adjacent open space facilities. That would encourage families to stay local and use those local amenities. Over and above that, I think, as was said right at the outset, it is a very sustainable location in planning terms. It's a brownfield site. You've got a doctor's surgery within walking distance, shops and facilities that can be accessed by bike and by foot. So in my mind, I don't think there's any need for any further conditions in that respect, but it's something certainly for us to bear in mind when, even when we're looking at those detailed plans.
Thank you, Phil. Shelley, are there any other speakers, please?
Yes, Councillor Mike Exton has requested to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Exton, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's regarding the actual highways. Surely, in the future, if they decide to develop the site, then the entrance and the surrounding area will come into fruition. It's going to be a bigger site. They're going to need more entrance and wider entrance and better control over the cars. When it was a school, it was limited to the starting times. With development, it increases the amount of traffic. But if the site is developed later, then highways will come into consideration of improving the network. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Shelley, any further speakers?
Yes, we've got Councillor Bisnell Singh and Bellamy have also requested to speak.
Thank you. I'm going to take those two and then I'm going to move to the vote. Councillor Bisnell Singh?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What I would like, when it comes back to the council at the reserve matter, will it come exactly in the same form, or will it take into considerations what we have discussed, what we have inputted today, and we'll have a new plan come forward to the to this committee?
I think Phil Jordan and Jeff have made it very clear that the comments made by members and the points made by members have been noted and will be taken into consideration as they discuss further the reserved matters. I think you can be assured, Harris, that that will be the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Harris. Councillor Bellamy, David, please, and then after David, I'm going to move to the vote.
The only thing I was going to say is there anything we can do at this point, or maybe this is one for Jeff, to make sure that we do try and get the county council and the applicant together to try and hammer something out for the wider site.
I'm sure Jeff, Lynette and Phil and all the officers have listened to the comments. Jeff, do you want the final word on that one, please? And then I'm going to move to the vote.
Yeah, that is a wider point. It has been noted, and yes, we can make relevant contacts there. But again, there's appropriate ways of doing that through various contacts, I'm sure. But yeah, we can certainly pick up that point.
Thank you very much for that, Jeff. Naomi, can we move to the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor David Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Harish Visnal Singh.
For.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
For.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
Abstain.
Councillor Mike Exton.
For.
Councillor Rosemary Cabery Brown.
For.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
For.
Councillor Robert Reid.
Abstain.
Councillor Ian Selby.
Against, and I'd like it recorded in the minutes, please, that I voted against. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that. Councillor Jackie Smith.
For.
Councillor Judy Smith.
For.
And Councillor Bob Adams.
For.
I can confirm that that proposition's been carried, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that, Naomi. Members, quick 5-minute comfort break, please, and we'll come back here for just after 11:30. If members are ready to continue, please, Naomi, could we have a quick roll call?
Apologies, Mr. Chairman. I'm just getting my computer and things back on. If it will let me. Okay, I'll just go through a quick roll call. Councillor David Bellamy.
Present.
Councillor Harish Bisnath Singh.
Go back to him, Naomi.
I will do. Councillor Helen Crawford.
Present.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
Present.
Councillor Mike Exton.
Present.
Councillor Rosemary Cabery-Brown. I'll go back to Councillor Cabery-Brown. Councillor Penny Milnes.
Present.
Councillor Robert Reid.
Present.
Councillor Ian Selby. Councillor Jackie Smith.
Present.
Councillor Judy Smith.
Present.
And Councillor Bob Adams.
Present.
Right, I'll just go back to Councillor Bisnath Singh. I've unmuted you, Councillor Bisnath Singh. Can you please indicate if you're back in the meeting? Okay, I'll go to Councillor Cabery-Brown. Councillor Cabery-Brown, I've unmuted you. Are you back in the meeting with us? Okay, at the minute it looks like we've still not got Councillor Bisnath Singh and Councillor Cabery-Brown, Chairman. I don't know whether you want to give it a minute and see if they're back in, so that they don't miss any of the next application.
I'll certainly give them half a minute.
Yeah. Councillor Bisnath Singh, are you back in the meeting? There's nothing coming from the microphone.
Councillor Cabery-Brown.
Can I just say thank you to you, Bob, for the manner in which you conducted that last item on the agenda. I thought you chaired it very well, even though it didn't get the outcome I wanted. I thought you chaired it well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ian, and you're very welcome. Okay, I think we'll move on. Can you keep an eye on the chat box to see when they come back, Naomi?
Yeah, the only issue is if they miss, it's whether or not they will be able to vote if they miss any of the discussion. Oh, I think Martha would like to speak.
Yes, Martha.
Thank you, Chairman. Just while we are paused and before we go on to the next item, I have been discussing with Jeff Upton and Shelley.
You're not coming across very clear, Martha.
Oh, can you hear me any better?
That's better, thank you.
Apologies. I have been speaking with Jeff Upton and Shelley in the background. Councillor Moran is identified that she didn't follow the correct procedure to register to speak. So we're in agreement that she shouldn't be able to speak on the last item, Chairman.
Do we know whether she is speaking as a member, as the ward member, or as a member of the public?
I don't think that has been made clear to us, Chairman, certainly not to me, but she hasn't registered to speak in the proper procedure that we would expect of a ward member or a member of the public. So we think
I'd like to know whether she is the local member, Martha, before I'll give a ruling on it.
Okay, I'm not sure if Shelley knows that answer. I'm afraid I do not.
Mr. Chairman, Virginia Moran is the member for Market Deeping, or a member for Market Deeping.
And is this her neck of the woods then, Phil?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, I'm going to rule that she can speak.
Thank you.
Okay, I've seen Harry say he's back. Councillor Rosemary Cabery-Brown?
Yes, I'm back, Chairman.
Fine indeed, thank you very much indeed. So we're all back, Naomi, now, are we?
Yes, that's correct.
Marvellous. So we'll go on to item 5 on the agenda, please. Agenda item, sorry, application 2235. Chris Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just loaded up my presentation now, so I'd be grateful if someone could let me know when it's available to view.
Yeah, it's here.
Chairman, can I take it that the presentation is loaded up for everyone?
Sorry, Chris, I'd muted myself. Yes, it has been loaded up.
That's all right. Thank you. I'll kick off. Good morning, Planning Committee. This application is a full application for the erection of 66 dwellings, together with associated infrastructure, access and open space. The site is adjacent to the fire station in Corby Glen. The key issues raised as part of this application include the principle of development, the impact on the character and appearance of the area, and highway impact. There's a wide overview of Corby Glen. So this shows the site located to the southeast of Corby Glen, with the site located in between Swinstead Road and Bourne Road. Now a slightly closer zoomed in aerial view, this shows the proximity of the site adjacent to the Charles Reed Academy School, which is to the north of the site, and the fire station as well to the north of the site. I'll come on to some photos where you'll be able to see the proximity of the fire station and its tower. And it forms 2 fields only, with the hedgerow boundaries shown. So I'll just use the pointer to indicate which 2 fields we're looking at. So it's this field here and this field here, with the access to Bourne Road there and the Swinstead Road on this side. The fire station building is where the pointer is there now. And that's the red line site application. So moving on to the photos, this first photo this is taken from within the eastern of the 2 fields, and this is looking northeast back towards Bourne Road, which is the A151, with the dwellings of Barnow Close seen in the picture there. So they're located beyond the hedgerow and beyond the road. This is again a photo from the eastern of the 2 fields. This is now looking further south. So beyond the hedgerow boundary there, the local plan site allocation continues, which is something I'll come on to later. This is now again in the eastern field, now looking further north, and again now you can see the fire station tower shown in the background of the site there. In the foreground there's a series of orchard tree planting which you can see, which is to be largely retained as part of the proposal. This is now moving on to the western field with a view through there to the school in the background. Again, the western field, this is looking west towards Swinstead Road. That's the Memorial Hall there that you can see the roof of beyond the hedgerow boundary and beyond Swinstead Road. And again, the western field, this is now looking back towards the eastern field of the site. This is taken from north of where the access will be on Bourne Road, looking back towards Corby Glen. With this site here, so the footway will be provided here where the photo is taken, together with a crossing point which will link up then with a further footway to link to the existing footway into the village of Corby Glen. The fire station entrance is located there in the photo on the left hand side. And then this is the view taken looking into Corby Glen again now from the other side of the development. So this is on Swinstead Road, and again the proposed pedestrian footway network will link up to the existing footway, taking you into Corby Glen there. This is the site plan for the local plan policy LVH5. So this is a site allocation for an indicative 250 dwellings in total, with this site proposing 66 dwellings of the whole wider site. And that's the relevant policy LVH5. This is discussed in the principle of development section of the report. Moving on to the proposed site plan. So the proposal is for 66 dwellings in total, with access points off both Bourne Road to the east and Swinstead Road to the west, providing an east-west connection through the site. The proposal includes areas of public open space, utilising the existing orchard planting adjacent to the fire station, and with further central areas of public open space, and a local area of play or lap, as shown and proposed to the north-east corner of the site. Drainage on site makes use of sustainable urban drainage systems, or SUDs, with two attenuation features, one centrally located and one within the Bourne Road boundary hedgerow, with the access road crossing this. Further, a roadside swale is included along the main access road through the site, east to west. The proposed 66 dwellings also includes provision of 30% affordable housing, equating to 20 affordable units in total on the site, and with a mix of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom market housing across the site. The proposal also includes walking and cycling links to the adjacent site, so I'll use the pointer again just to point those out. So you've got one link here through this area of public open space shown centrally, which you're linking. This is all indicative of the adjacent site as part of the wider allocation, but either way there'll be one walking cycling link through there, which again will link up with a further link all through the public open space back to Bourne, and a second link which again comes from Bourne Road straight through the site here, which will link up to the next one. In addition to those, there'll be two further pedestrian footpaths along the highway of Bourne Road and on Swinstead Road, which will link up to the adjacent site as well. Soft landscaping plans have been submitted as part of this application. So this first one shows the detailed planting and soft landscaping plan for the western part of the site, and now for the eastern part of the site. Landscaping includes retention of existing hedgerows except for creation of accesses, retention of the majority of orchard trees on site as shown, and new street tree planting of smaller species, and new tree planting of larger species within the public open space, including oak, lime and hornbeam trees. Here's some illustrative landscape sections. So this is a cross section showing the site adjacent to Bourne Road, which is the section at the top of your screen now, with the attenuation pond and retention of the hedgerow shown. And then centrally across the site showing the roadside swale at the bottom of your screen. I'll expand on this just because I was asked the question by a member prior to committee, but if I use the laser pointer again, so taking this bottom view here, this shows a front hedgerow in front of a dwelling. It shows the pedestrian walkway next to the road. There's the main primary street which runs east to west between Swinstead Road and Bourne Road rather. And then this is the swale here, so this is roadside swale. So as I was trying to explain earlier to members, it's a sort of small indentation in the road that's planted up, so it has marginal planting in. And the role of that swale is to take surface water drainage away from the highway, so that the highway will be built on a slight gradient, which with water running off into the swale, and that will run off then through the swale in the planting towards the relevant attenuation feature, which is located in the centre of the site. And a small number of the housing plots, rather than using filtration, will also have surface water run off into the swale as well. But just to indicate that's the use of a swale there. In terms of the proposed materials, these are to be conditioned with this plan showing the use of stone to key frontage properties, which is shown in orange, and then a mix of red brick and buff brick dwellings used throughout the scheme. Boundary treatments include a series of brick wall features to both entrances from Bourne Road and Swinstead Road, and across the small bridge over the attenuation basin on the eastern side of the site, but then a mix of mainly timber and some metal fencing through the scheme. The applicants provided a couple of isometric views. So this first view shows the southern central area of public open space in the scheme, including the footway, cycleway connection to the adjoining site. So effectively everything in sort of the bottom right hand corner of your view there in white would be the adjoining site as part of the wider site allocation. And then a second isometric view, this shows the northeastern corner of the site adjacent to Bourne Road. So you can clearly see the lap or the local area of play in the bottom corner there, together with the retention of the existing orchard tree planting and the attenuation basin along the Bourne Road hedgerow is also shown, with the access bridge over that as well. Moving on, I've just got some of the house types. I haven't included all of the house types proposed, but this is a 3-bed dwelling, of which there are 7 proposed within the scheme of 66. This is a terrace 3-bed dwelling, of which there's 5 of these within the scheme. further 3-bed dwelling, which is the most popular house type on the site. So there's 8 of these in total, 4 of which will be open market, and 4 of these will be in affordable shared ownership dwellings as well of this house type. And then finally, I've included a 4-bed dwelling. So this is the most popular 4-bed offering, with 8 of these proposed through the scheme. In terms of the key points and evaluations of the proposal, so as set out, the site is allocated for residential development in the local plan policy LVH5, with this application proposing 66 of the indicative 250 of the wider allocation. The application has been in for a while, but has been amended through the scheme and through consideration of the application, taking on board comments from the case officer, urban designer and landscape consultant to amend the layout, provide additional landscaping details, and also include a reduction of 2 dwellings from the initial 68 proposed. There's been no objections received from any statutory consultees, and only 2 objections received from members of the public. Section 106 contributions are set out in the report and include contributions to County Council education, the NHS for medical provision, affordable housing provision as discussed, highways features including moving the 30-mile-an-hour sign and a new gateway, and community facilities as well. Just to let members know, on the additional items paper, there is clarification on the change to the materials condition and a query received with regards to radon as well. That's set out in additional items. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and completion of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chairman. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Chris. Only one speaker on here, which is on behalf of the applicants, Hannah Guy. I think it would be appropriate to recognise the consideration the applicants have given to their application in terms of changes and amendments, etc. So we do thank the applicants for the forbearance. So, Hannah, would you like to give your presentation, please?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I hope you can all hear me. We're all remotely working again. So good morning, members, and thank you for this opportunity. As you'll know, and Chris has just explained, it's a sustainable site and it's part of an allocation for residential development. As he showed on the plan, it's 2 fields of a wider allocation site, and with the preparation of the allocation site, there is a master plan and a vision statement and a vision document. What we've worked with your officers is to work within this vision statement and the master plan and bring forward this development here before you. As said by Councillor Bob Adams just now, we have worked, it has been in a while, we have worked with your officers. We've been to 2 PAD meetings. The scheme has gone through extensive consultation and it's changed. It's changed quite a lot since when it first came in. So the comments and suggestions from officers have been taken on board, and I think before you today is a suitable scheme that we're all comfortable with. The number of dwellings has been reduced. It's now 66, and it's noted in your officer's report there aren't any outstanding or existing objections, and any mitigation can be done via planning conditions. So the 106, I have instructed that. Officers don't have a draft copy as yet in front of them, but that will take on board all of the items that Chris has just outlined in terms of the affordable housing provision, the village hall improvements, education contributions, the contribution towards healthcare, and the provision of the open space and the lab. Finally, I thought it might be worth mentioning that the allocation is anticipated to deliver almost immediately. This site, it's in our build programme. It's one that the company are very keen on and very proactive in bringing forwards. I think just to potentially outline for members, it's a site that is in your local plan trajectory. It's been used as part of the annual position statement, and I really feel that this will help and assist with housing numbers that will come forwards in that early local plan period. I think we've demonstrated that Larkfleet are committed to the site. We're going to build it out, and I hope that you can endorse your officer's recommendation and draft planning conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Questions to... Sorry, Hannah, yeah, okay. Right, there are no other public speakers, so we go on to questions. First of all, to the applicant. Any questions for Hannah? Shelley?
There doesn't appear, Chairman, to be any questions. Sorry. Yes, there is now a question from Councillor Helen Crawford to the Speaker.
Councillor Crawford, Helen, please.
Thank you. Morning, Hannah. Going back to page 53, 7.13, policy H4 of the local plan promotes the mixed types of housing provision, including housing to enable older people and the most vulnerable to promote, secure and sustain in their independence. I haven't seen any bungalows in your design. In your future design for the rest of the plot, will you be putting bungalows in?
Councillor, I can answer that. We don't have any on this site. What we have tried to incorporate in our standard house types are lifetime homes. So these homes can be adaptable and are basically large enough to do that. We aren't in control of the next bit of the site, I'm afraid. So I'm really sorry. I don't know. That's potentially somebody else, but it's not a Lark Fleet one. So I don't know. I can't answer that second part of your question. Apologies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Any further questions to the applicant, please, Shelley?
None are in the chat box. They are all for the officer.
Thank you. Can we move on to questions to the officer? Thank you, Hannah, for that presentation. Can we move on to questions, please, to the case officer?
We have questions from Councillor Harish Bisnath Singh, followed by Councillor David Bellamy.
Thank you. Councillor Bisnath Singh. Harish, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chris, for excellent presentations. I've got two questions. One of them, first one is on page 48, paragraph 2.4. Will it be possible for you to explain? I'm a bit confused with it. You've got a gross density of 25 dwellings or DPH. This is a gross one, and then you come to a net site what called a density of 37 dph. How does that arrive? Could you please explain it for me, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bisnath Singh. Yes, no, I'm happy to explain. So the gross density is the total, so the number of dwellings proposed, in this case 66, taken over the whole site. So if you took the red outline of the site, sort of what that area is, 66 divided by that equates to 27 dwellings per hectare. And then the net density I've given, so just to show that when you take out the areas of public open space or non-developable areas of the site, then it's still 37 dwellings per hectare. So overall, we consider that to be appropriate for its location. The net density, if you like, the gross density of less than 30 dwellings per hectare is regarded as relatively low density.
Well, don't you think such as 37 dph, but it's a bit higher than per hectare than what our policies, I thought, says 30 dph maximum per hectare.
The 30 dph would be based on gross, not on net. So different sites, depending on the size of the site, will have different requirements for areas of public open space. So with this one, for instance, the areas of public open space proposed are relatively large because that's the size of the site. But no, overall we'd say it's 27 dwellings per hectare gross, which is lower than 30 dwellings per hectare. The other thing to bear in mind with this one is what it will form an edge of settlement site to start with when it's built, but then there will be, as I've set out and as the agent set out as well, so the applicant rather set out, there's an adjoining site allocation, so there will be a further X number of dwellings to be built or further out than this one as well.
Thank you, Chris. Next member, please.
I've got one more, Mr. Chairman. My second question on page 54, paragraph G of 7.17. It says, before considering the applications, the planning application for this site, a mineral assessment will be required. Has that mineral assessment been carried out?
Yes, if you're happy for me to come back, Councillor Bisnath Singh. Yes, it was carried out. So I've just sort of scanned in the report. So if you go to paragraph 5.9 is the response, the consultation response from the County Council's Minerals and Waste. They've set out this: consider that having regards to the scale, nature and location of the proposed development, the applicant has demonstrated that in accordance with the criteria of their Minerals and Waste local plan, prior extraction of the underlying mineral resource would be impractical. Accordingly, the County Council has no safeguarding objections. So yes, so the applicant has satisfied that point.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Harris. Thank you, Chris. Next member, please, Shelley.
Councillor David Bellamy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the presentation, Chris. I've just got 2 questions, please. On the report 7.4.4 on page 57, it says a further pedestrian crossing uncontrolled will link this to the existing footway into the village. What sort of pedestrian crossing is that, please, and whereabouts is it? I can't quite work out. I don't know whether it's possible to point it out.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. I can try and get the presentation back up if you'd like me to, but effectively what it is, it's an uncontrolled pedestrian crossing. So effectively the applicant will provide a new footway. So from where the access will go is then a 2-metre pedestrian footway pavement, if you like, sort of along the side of the hedgerow, sort of on Bourne Road. Yeah. And then there'll be a drop curb provision. So there's sort of the buff brick sort of different texture, if you like, to the drop curb bit, as then the same on the other side, and then provision of a new footway which runs up all the way up the other side to meet with the existing footway.
Is this to cross Bourne Road?
It is, yes. Yeah.
So it won't be a pedestrian, it won't be a zebra crossing or anything like that. It'll just be a crossing point.
It'll just be a crossing point, yes, but the crossing point will be marked with the appropriate drop curb and difference in materials, if you like, but there won't be a zebra crossing or any traffic lights or anything like that. That's not proposed as...
Thank you. Not necessarily specific to this, but just to pick up on what Councillor Crawford said about bungalows and policy H4. Is there anything in the policies, the wider policies, to bearing in mind that we've sort of all the time we've sort of heard people about old age pensioners wanting to downsize, you know, to something more suitable, you know, which you'd assume would be probably a bungalow. Is there anything in the wider policy of H4 to, you know, to accommodate this sort of property in the development?
Not specifically, I'm afraid, no. So policy H4 does set out the relevant criteria that Councillor Crawford related to in a question to the applicant earlier. So we do have to consider the mix of housing proposed. So I've set out in the report, so I can try and find which paragraph it is.
Like I said, I don't mean necessarily specifically to this, but sort of in the wider, you know, in the wider sort of allocation, if you like. You know, is there any sort of thing in there to state that we'll build any bungalows at all? No. Not
specifically with regards to bungalows. There is a requirement for 10%. The building regulations are called M4. I'm happy for any of the other officers to correct me on that. I think I'm right. So there's a requirement for 10% M4 dwellings, which are effectively accessible and adaptable dwellings.
Yeah, are they usually sort of what I would consider though downsizing, you know, say from 3-bedroom semi or anything like that?
Well, the policy H4 has if you look in the supporting text of policy H4, so I haven't got it in front of me, but there'll be a series of percentages, which are sort of target percentages for market and affordable dwellings, which is set from the document called the Strategic Housing Market Assessment, or SHMAR. So we use those as a rough guideline, and that's what I've sort of compared the proposal of house types on this site towards as well. With this one in particular, there is, so in the supporting text for policy H5 for this site application, it does set out that this particular allocation does mention about promoting the provision of family housing, because unlike sort of other villages in the district, this one, Cobby Glen, does have a secondary school as well as a primary school. Yeah. So that's why there's sort of more of an emphasis on family housing rather than just on downsizing housing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. I think some very good points there that perhaps Jeff and Robert Reid might pick up when we start looking at the revised local plan, etc., because I think that is the time we start introducing and putting a label on those sort of issues, David. But thank you for raising them. Shelley, next speaker, question, please.
I believe Councillor Helen Crawford has a question for the officer.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Helen.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, Chris. Thank you for your presentation. Really, I think David's asked all the questions I was going to ask, and I was going to point out that perhaps we need to think along the lines of bungalows for future developments. I mean, everything that we've got today, no bungalows are included, and I think we need to cater for all generations.
Thank you, Helen. Are there any further members wishing to ask a question, Chris? Shelley?
Councillor Jackie Smith has just indicated she would like to ask a question.
Jackie, is it a question or is it a matter of debate?
Could be either, Bob. But I think I'd like a question first.
Fine, indeed. Put the question then. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah. I just wondered if, given the size of this and the fact that we're supposed to be looking at the environment, are there any proposals to within this site to put, for instance, looking at the stuff that is, the material that is used, and whether, for instance, we go back to perhaps solar panels or something like that on the roof to help with the environment.
Thank you, Jackie. Chris?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Thank you, Chairman. So with regards to sustainability of the site is considered to be a sustainable location. So it's located in close proximity to a number of sort of services and facilities. So Corby Glen has a co-op, has 2 pubs, a primary school and a secondary school, in addition to a GP practice. So it is walkable to all those services and facilities. In terms of the further measures, so for instance, your example of solar panels and electric car charging points are mentioned. The applicant hasn't set that out at this stage. However, that is secured. So it's condition 3, I believe. I will just double check for you. Yeah, condition 3 is a pre-commencement condition for sustainability measures. So effectively we're asking the applicant to outline the requirements with policy SB1. So for instance, the wording of the condition says the scheme shall include details of how carbon dioxide emissions will be minimised through the design and construction of the buildings, details of water efficiency and provision of electric car charging points. So yes, so effectively we've secured that extra information through that condition.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any other members wishing to ask questions, Shelley?
No other members have indicated they wish to ask questions of the officer, no.
Thank you, Shelley. I've got one, Chris, if I may. In your presentation, you made reference to the orchard and trees largely to be retained. Is there any more clarification in terms of numbers or how that is going to be managed, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so the orchard planting, I've said largely to be retained. I haven't counted up every single one of them, I'm afraid, but they aren't. So the applicant, one of the requests to the applicants through the process was to submit the full landscaping details to us, which they have done. So it shows the retention of sort of the big core of all those orchard tree planting. I think there's a couple of outliers sort of separate to that main core which may go and be replaced with other trees, but the main core of all that orchard planting will be retained. In terms of management of the public open space, including that orchard planting, that's again set out in a condition. So there's a condition for a landscape management plan. You're welcome to go back to the applicant if she's willing to come on and suggest anything, but I imagine it will be handed over to a management company, would be my expectation, unless the applicant's got any other views on that, but that's secured through that condition. I'd just add to that as well, just on the point I was making earlier about swales, just to say that they will be adopted by the county council, the highway authority, so they won't fall into private ownership or the management plan, the landscape management plan. They will be in the control of the county council.
Thank you for that, Chris. Hannah, any comment on the trees, please?
Sorry, just unmute myself. Yeah, we've done an extensive arboricultural survey on all of the trees around the site, the orchard trees specifically as well. Working with Chris and Richard Shaw, your urban design officer, what we've sought to do is to retain that core orchard area as much as possible. And what we've also sought to do is is to face those dwellings out onto it, so that so we've released the full impact of it and not had back garden fences facing up against them, so that it cuts off the trees and then potentially impacts on maybe their root system or something. So that was one of the key things that we've been talking with your officers about, is turning that whole development round to retain and incorporate as many of those existing features as possible. As Chris has just said, some of the outliers have got to go. We did shuffle some houses around, and we've chosen the, oh crikey, is it the southern end nearest to Bourne Road to bring out the houses, and there's a couple of those in that corner that are going to go, so I'm not going to shy away and say all of those trees are staying, but that's the area that we had surveyed and looked at for the trees that were least healthy, but in essence the main core stays. I don't think I can add anything else, sorry.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Chris. If there's no further questions to Chris, can we move on to debate, please? Any member wishing to contribute to a debate?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just about to confirm that we've got Councillor Phil Dilts wishes to speak in debate.
Thank you. Councillor Dilts, Phil, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I first of all thank Chris for his comprehensive report, and also from the agent, Hannah, thank you. I actually welcome the application, looked at it. I haven't visited it, but I do know the site, obviously. I particularly welcome, can I just say, the sustainability has just been mentioned. I particularly welcome the condition 3 that has been put in, and I hope and welcome that as almost a standard paragraph that should now be in this sort of application, and I hope that we actually build on that paragraph, if I can say that, that talks about electric car charging points and requirements for details of how water efficiency is going to be achieved, etc. I also welcome the crossing point that will come in and is conditioned, I think, on that has to be there before the any of these houses are occupied. I really welcome that. Overall, I really welcome the application as a boost, I think, to a relatively small village of Corby Glen, and I think this helps with it being family houses. I don't necessarily agree that we need bungalows in this particular development, which is right next to the secondary school, which is one of the smallest secondary schools in the county, if not the smallest, and has had difficulty of sustainability, keeping the numbers up in the past. So I think this will help sustain that school, the secondary school, as well, and actually bring a bit more life into Corby Glen, if I can put it that way. And I noticed that it is broadly welcomed by the parish council as well. They're certainly not objecting. However, the one thing, a very small point, but I do welcome that the highways are saying that the 30-mile-an-hour limit will be extended about 150 metres along Bourne Road. I would say I welcome that. It is a very fast approach road into Corby Glen. I know that because it's the way I, in normal times, would come to the council meetings. So I come through that village, and it is quite a fast approach. And I know that because quite often there's a police officer with a speed gun standing in the fire station access road. So I've never been breaking the limit, of course, myself. But my question really on the speed limit is, when will it be brought in? The Highways Authority have a habit of refusing to bring these in until, frankly, the houses are occupied, and I think that's too late. We've got the construction is going to, you know, and again, whilst I welcome the wheel washing and the other requirements that are going to be in here, inevitably there is mud spilled on the roads, you know, during these developments, however careful the developers are. So I really would like, if possible, almost to condition that as a you know, extend the 30-mile-an-hour limit at the start of construction. Is that possible, Chris? Thank you.
Chris, do you want to answer that? My own information is it isn't possible, but perhaps Chris has a different view.
Thank you, Chairman. Sir Dilks. Yes, unfortunately, that it won't be possible prior to construction, I'm afraid. So the moving of the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit also incorporates a new gateway feature as well to the village. So it's not just sort of, you know, picking up the 30-mile-an-hour sign and moving it, put it back in again further down the road. But that's secured through the Section 106 agreement rather than through a planning condition. In terms of when exactly it goes in, we'll set that out in the Section 106 to be agreed with the applicant and with County Council Highways, so they'll set out that to us and we'll incorporate the highways wording in the Section 106. I think the other thing with this site we've just got to be mindful of is, so this is part of the wider site allocation, and County Highways will have to look at that 30-mile-an-hour sign in relation to the next part of the site as well coming forward. So there's still another sort of, you know, potentially 190 dwellings plus coming forward to the rest of the site. What Highways won't want to do is move it just slightly further down the road for this site and then move it slightly further down the road again for the access to the next bit. So that's why I think the Section 106 is the best place to secure that 30-mile-an-hour speed limit moving.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate those answers. Thank you. I just put the marker down. You know that it is something that we're all aware of, and you know we do need to push them on it. But I do appreciate what you said. On the basis of those answers and everything else, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to propose approval on this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Phil. Shelley, the next contributor in debate, please.
We have got Councillors Ian Selby, followed by Councillor Robert Reid.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Ian.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was just having my dinner. Anyway, but first of all, thank you to Chris and thank you to Hannah for their presentations. I do know this area very well. I actually went to the school, Charles Reid, Corby Glen. Yeah, cracking good school it is now. Now that I've left, anyway. What I do like is about this application. I absolutely welcome Phil's comments about the speed limits as well. I do like the through road that goes from the Swinstead Road through to the Bourne Road. So if you actually come in from Swinstead and you want to go to Bourne, you don't have to go all the way into the middle of the village. And there's that, as you'll probably know, Mr. Chairman, as you get to that junction there near the pub, it's a horrible turning if you want to turn right to go to Bourne. So really, this through road actually alleviates that problem there. So yeah, warmly welcome that. As we know, Corby now it's got some wonderful school, doctor's surgery as well, right near this application site as well. Also, as I mentioned, the fire station. So basically, Corby is now becoming a small town, isn't it? Basically, with other developments that's taken place in the village. I welcome also as well Councillor Helen Crawford's comments about bungalows. Absolutely, very very good point that she's made there as well. I'll just finish with a sarky comment, if you like, Mr. Chairman.
No, I don't like.
No, you won't like this. I'll just suggest that we don't need a site visit on this one because it's not a major backland development, is it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Robert Reid, Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll make sure that my references are commensurate to the application in front of us. I welcome the improved design. It's much welcomed in this application. I think the access has also been improved, so the connectivity to the rest of Corby Glen is welcomed to and appreciated by the village. large village. It's nearly a town, is Corby Glen in the size of it in its entirety. And I wish to support my colleague Phil Dilks, and I'm happy to second the application for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Robert. Any further members wishing to speak, Shelley?
Councillor Mike Exton.
Councillor Exton, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we just referred to the 106 agreement, moving the 30-mile-an-hour sign further out the village, surely this is a dual standard. In Stamford, they don't think it's necessary to move a 40-mile-an-hour limit nearing a estate, and now on the 106 agreement, they're putting it in. To me, it's a dual standard and negative thinking by Lincolnshire Highways. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, thank you for that. Any further speakers, please, Shelley?
There's no one else indicated, no, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we've had it proposed and seconded. We'll move to the vote. Naomi, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor David Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Harish Bisnath Singh.
For.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
For.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
For.
Councillor Mike Exton.
For.
Councillor Rosemary Cabery-Brown.
For.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
For.
Councillor Robert Reid.
For.
Councillor Ian Selby.
For.
Councillor Jackie Smith.
For.
Councillor Judy Smith.
For.
And Councillor Bob Adams.
For.
Thank you. So the committee have unanimously voted for the proposal.
Thank you, Shelley. Can we now move on to agenda item 6, application 0603, which is in the hands of Phil Jordan, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to upload the presentation. Thank you. Is that showing on the screen now?
Not yet, Phil. It is now.
Thank you, and good afternoon, members. So this next application is S20-0603. It's a reserve matters application relating to the siting, design and appearance, access and landscape in connection with application S16-2285, which was the outline permission that's been approved for 19 dwellings on the site. The site's located at Falcon Way in Bourne. And I won't introduce myself again, I've done that earlier on. So key issues with this application, the affordable and housing, market housing mix, the impact of the development on the character of the area, impacts on residential amenity, both existing surrounding properties and those that are proposed for future occupiers, and highways and transport infrastructure. So the site itself is located to the southeast of Bourne, just above the red circle there. You can see Tesco's, which is probably the biggest landmark close to the site. And then to the west of the site, you've got South Road that runs past the site before you enter the site off Eagle Way. This sort of large development here to the bottom of the screen to the south of Bourne, that's the ongoing Elsie Park development. So this, again, it's just a sort of a zoomed in version of that previous slide. So you can see Tesco to the north of the site. You can see Eagle Road here that comes off South Road, and then Falcon Way, which runs both to the west of the site and across the north of the site. There's some existing residential development in and around the site, and to the east of the site is Abbey Court Care Home. So these are just a few photos of the site. So this is as you come in off Eagle Road, looking in a northeast direction across the site. So you can see those 3-storey block of apartments, and then the care home to the north of the site as well. So this is looking from Eagle Road, looking back towards the west. You can see some existing residential development there. Fairly limited, if I'm honest, in terms of the existing design quality of what's around this particular site. Again, that shows the sort of taken from a bit further back from Falcon Way, looking southwest across the site. So just for the avoidance of doubt, the red line runs around that green space as shown on the plan. At the outline stage, there was a indicative plan submitted. All the details were confined to reserve matters, although there is some relevance to the indicative plan in that there was a viability argument put forward, and condition 3 on the outline permission limited the amount of overall floor space that the development could provide. So in some ways there is a requirement for this development proposal to accord with that condition on the outline consent, and as I say, that was done at the time because a viability argument was put forward. So you can see from this plan here that the layout does largely accord with the details that were on that indicative plan. So the access to the site is in the same place. So you've got the care home here to the east of the site, and you've got the access here off Falcon Way to the northeast of the site. What we've tried to do as much as possible is make the development sort of forward facing and addressing the prominent views into the site. So particularly this edge along Falcon Way and the corner plots, we've tried to make the features there as strong as possible, so it's sort of a visually appealing site as you enter from Eagle Road. What the access does here on this side of the site to the east is it provides a little bit of separation and relief to the frontage of the Abbey Court care home. Yeah, this is quite an important feature, so it's probably quite difficult to see on your laptops or whichever screens you're looking at. But to the north of the site, running in a sort of northwest to southeast direction, there's a high pressure gas main, and there's an easement either side of that gas main where built form development is restricted. And again, that was a condition on the outline consent. So you can see the dashed line there indicates where that easement is, and the built forms outside of that that gas pipe easement. So these are some of the visuals of the site, showing various viewpoints. You can see, tried to add some sort of quite strong characteristics to the elevations of these properties, and they should be visually more appealing than some of the development that's in the area at the moment, and hopefully it would give a bit of an uplift to the overall design quality in that particular part of Bourne. There's a mix of 2-storey dwellings, and you can see on the Falcon Way Street scene there's this 2.5 storey, as we refer to them as, where they've got some additional accommodation in the roof space. But again, you've got that block of 3-storey flats to one side of the development, so it's not considered to be out of keeping with any of the existing scale around the development. So then these just give various viewpoints from different directions into the site. So that's the sort of strong frontage from Falcon Way, and you can see these plots on the corner have been designed to address the corner and have dual frontage elevations. So this view 5 here, you don't get that blank gable end, which is generally considered to be quite a poor design feature. We've got windows and features on both of those elevations. So just going back to view 6 here, you can see that it's not as easy to see, but this is where you've got the separation to where the care home frontage is. So again, that provides some relief there with the access road coming in to the top of the site here. Just one verbal amendment to the recommendation is that condition 2, which required, it was a pre-commencement condition for submission of a construction management plan. Since the agenda was published, the applicants have submitted a construction management plan. The Highway Authority have confirmed they're happy with it, so that the amendment proposes to make that condition a compliance condition, so it effectively requires development to be carried out in accordance with that submitted construction management plan. So just a bit of an overview of an evaluation. The site does have outline consent for 19 dwellings. The proposal put forward accords with the conditions on the outline consent, specifically in relation to the overall amount of floor space and avoiding that gas easement, which is a key constraint on the site. The scheme has been amended following sort of review at Design Pad and advice of the Council's Urban Design Officer. The scheme would deliver 2 one-bedroom affordable flats, although that seems like a low number. That's been previously assessed at the outline stage through a viability review, and that's been agreed with the Council's Affordable Housing Officer. I've already said the layout avoids that gas pipeline easement, so the appearance, layout and scale are considered to be appropriate for this context. Some landscaping details have been included on the plans, and generally they're considered to be acceptable, but we've included conditions requiring further detail of that landscaping, so that would allow us to really look at the sort of the detail of the individual species and any particular on-plot landscaping, so things like the boundary treatments and any sort of patios and that level of detail that's to be provided. There is a sort of part of the submission included some sustainable building measures which are included in the main report, and we've secured those by condition. So there's a condition requiring that the development is built out in accordance with those sustainable building measures that have been put forward. The access arrangements considered acceptable, no objection or issues raised by the Highway Authority. So the recommendation is to approve the application subject to the conditions in the main report, with the update condition 2 that I've verbally reported. Thank you, Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Phil. There are no public speakers for this application, so we can move straight to questions to the case officer. Shelley, any member wishing to ask a question?
No members have indicated that I can see in the chat box now.
Thank you, Shelley. Move on to the debate then. Any members requested to speak in the debate, Shelley?
Councillor Robert Reid.
Councillor Reid. Robert, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As is clearly indicated within this report, it is in Osterby Ward, which I represent. This is a piece of land that is adjacent to the Tesco's superstore. It is a small parcel of land in an undeveloped situation within the development that has the care home and housing around it, and it is good to see that there has been some definition put into the into planting and into some vegetation for the area, because otherwise I think it's going to not complement the design that has now been put forward to the houses, and it above all it does need some character in the development, so the landscaping attention to detail is very much thought and appreciated. On that basis, I'm quite happy to propose that we support the recommendation and make that a proposition to be put forward, Chairman.
Thank you, Robert. Shelley, further speakers?
Councillor Crawford.
Councillor Crawford, Helen, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say, for a change, we've got some really good designs of houses that look different and not just off the shelf, which is a great improvement. And I would quite happily second this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I think we're now seeing the benefit of the design pad and the contributions being made by Richard Shaw to the applications coming in.
Absolutely, Chairman.
Any further members in debate, please, Shelley?
None indicated, no, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we'll go straight to the vote. Naomi, please.
Chair, Chairman. Sorry, it's Martha.
Oh, thank you, Martha. Sorry, no wonder I get confused.
And apologies, it's I just wondered if we could confirm that the proposal incorporates the officer's verbal update as well, please, Chairman.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I'll move it to the vote then, Mr. Chairman. Councillor David Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Harris Bisnal Singh.
For.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
For.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
For.
Councillor Mike Exton.
For.
Councillor Rosemary Cabery Brown.
For.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
For.
Councillor Robert Reid.
For.
Councillor Ian Selby.
For.
Councillor Jackie Smith.
For.
Councillor Judy Smith.
For.
And Councillor Bob Adams.
For.
That proposition is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. So we'll now move on, members, to application 0065. Presenting officer Steve Catton, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'll just share the presentation if you could let me know when everyone can see it. You see that yet? No.
I think it came and went.
Okay, I'm just going to try sharing it a second.
Presentation is on the screen, Stephen. Thank you.
No, it isn't.
No.
Okay, apologies. I'll just try this one more time.
It's flashing. That's better.
No, it's gone again.
Gone again.
Gone again.
Right, were you back? It's back. No, it keeps going off the screen, Stephen.
Okay. I'm just going to try it one more time.
It's back on now. Yep.
Okay. Bring up a laser pointer. Okay, if everyone can see that. Okay, this is application number S200065. It's for construction of a bungalow with a detached garage, fencing and driveway, etc. It's at 31 Halfleet, Mark Deeping, and yeah, my name's Steve Cadland, and I'm a Development Management Planning Officer. Okay, so the key issues here, there's the principle of development, whether the site in question is an appropriate site for a bungalow. There's a setting of heritage assets because the site is immediately next door to a Grade 2 listed building. As always, the character and appearance of the area. Yeah, highway safety is an issue. There was actually an application for a new dwelling on the site back in 2004, and that was actually refused both on grounds of harm to the listed building and also on the quality of the vehicle access. As I'll show in a minute, the proposal under consideration today is substantially different. Yeah, draining and flooding, because it's been identified as being at risk of surface water flooding, and as always, potential residential amenity impacts on neighbours. So this is the site. It's outlined in red there. The next slide is a satellite image of the location, which actually shows it better. But the main thing to take away here is that it's basically a very, very large, a very, very long garden. You can also see highlighted in this slide that there's a number of mature trees, particularly along the southeastern boundary of the site. So that's a satellite image. You can see once again that it's a very large back garden belonging to this particular property. A couple of other things to take away. You can see that although this is backland development, this site has been pretty much built around over the years. You can see there's new housing to the northwest and at the rear, and to the southeast you can see that it's not immediately next door, but it's next door but one. There's actually a piece of backland development to create this small group of houses on Forge Court. Something that will be highlighted in the photographs of the site is that there's a real mix. It's all housing around in the surrounding area, but it's really houses of quite a great variety of different types and ages. Immediately next door there's a Grade 2 listed building. There's another historic building down here. At the rear on either side it's basically relatively modern housing, and a lot of it's two-storey, but there are bungalows nearby. Just to the northwest it's a bungalow, and there's another bungalow immediately opposite on the other side of Halfleet itself. So there's quite a variety of different building types here. So 31 Halfleet it's an end of terrace house. It's the one you can see at the right hand side of this photo. As you can see, it's part of a short terrace of two-storey properties. If you look to the left hand side of the property, you get some idea that there's a variety of different houses around the site. There's a bungalow there, and then there's a couple of two-storey houses of a different design to number 31. This photograph shows the front of the site. Again, number 31 is the end of terrace house, and you can see the listed building on the right hand side of the photo. There's a better photograph of that in a second, but what you can see here is there's an existing driveway here, although it doesn't have a dropped curb. The previous planning application on the site 15 years ago, there are a couple of major differences from the proposal that's in front of us today. In that application, the proposed house was to be built here at the front of the site, so it would have had a much bigger impact on the setting of the listed building. The other difference is that the vehicle access would have come straight down here, straight onto the road, and you can see that the house on the right, it does, as things stand, it does obstruct visibility. If a car was driving out of here onto the road, it's the visibility of someone in the driver's seat to see pedestrians coming backwards and forwards along the footpath would be quite limited. The proposal that we're looking at would actually move the vehicle access over to the left slightly. So that's a better picture of the listed building next door. You can see it's a very attractive historic stone-built house, and if you look at the very right hand side of the photograph, you can see there's another building. It's not listed, but it's another historic property, once again underlining the variety of different types of houses in this particular location. I've now got a series of photos there taken from within the site, basically a panorama kind of turning around in a clockwise direction. This one, I'd emphasise it's not taken from the very rear of the back garden, it's taken from the site where the bungalow would go. You can see it's set well back from the listed building over on the left, and it's set well back from number 31 and the other houses in that short terrace. I'd also draw your attention that on the left hand side of the photograph there are some mature trees. A condition has been recommended that measures are taken to protect those. So Looking to the northwest, you can see that there's modern housing. But it's set back a significant difference. It's not right next door to the application site. This is looking to the rear, showing more modern housing again. Again, though it's set well back from where the bungalow would sit. And the next two photos are looking to the southeast, and you can see more mature trees on the site that would be protected by condition. And you can see modern housing on Forge Court. And that the housing on Forge Court it's the closest of any of the housing surrounding the site, but it's still set back a good distance. And that's another photo looking slightly further to the front, showing more housing on Forge Court. So this map. This is an Environment Agency map showing risks of surface water flooding. The site, it's in flood zone 1, which means that there's no unusual risk of it being flooded from rivers or streams or that kind of thing. But in the event of heavy rain, there's the risk that would lie on the surface of the ground. And so we've asked the applicant to submit a flood risk strategy, and they've outlined how they would deal with this, and I'll discuss that in a minute. We've also recommended a condition that a full surface water drainage strategy would have to be submitted and approved before they commenced work on site. So the details of that would be controlled. So this is the proposed site plan. A few things to notice here. The first thing is that this has been amended since the application originally came in, and you can see the vehicle entrance to the highway. It's been moved to the northwest slightly, taking it away from this house to the southeast and improving the visibility for a car pulling out onto the road. You can see there's a couple of parking. There would be a couple of parking spaces here, providing parking for number 31, the existing house on the site, and there's 3 parking spaces for the new bungalow. You can see that because it's such a large garden at the moment, even if you put a bungalow on the site, it still leaves a usable garden for number 31 here, and the new build bungalow, it would have a usable garden as well. So these are the elevations of the proposed bungalow. You can see it's a kind of elongated plan. It would be built using a mixture of brick and render. It's worth paying a slight bit of attention to the windows. As you can see, there's limited windows and roof lights above ground floor level. At the front of the property, these are situated high up, and you'll see in a section coming up shortly that these would be well above head height, so no one would be able to look out of them. There is a roof light lower down at the rear, but if you remember the site plan and satellite photo I was showing you, the bungalow would be set well away from the houses at the rear, so that wouldn't harm the amenities of any neighbouring property. This is the northwest facing side in the section. You can see there are roof lights here. The northwest side of the house, it would be set away from Dovecote Road, which is the houses to the northwest. It's actually 35 metres away from the houses themselves and 25 metres away from their gardens, so it wouldn't harm their privacy. If you look at the section, you can see that the roof lights at the front, being high up, no one would be able to see out of them. These are the floor plans. There's nothing too surprising here. You can see there's a kind of living kitchen area at the rear. All of the habitable rooms would have good access to natural light. In the consultation responses, certainly at least one neighbour drew attention to the nature of the bedrooms and had some criticisms to make. I'd acknowledge that with most rooms, I'd like to see not just a roof light providing natural light, but some outlook. But as I'm sure everyone's aware, there are no shortage of bedrooms out there as a result of loft conversions and that kind of thing, where natural light's provided by roof lights, and so that's viewed as being entirely acceptable. And yeah, we've got some proposed garage elevations. These weren't included with the officer report that was sent out because they were provided relatively late on, but you can see it's absolutely, it's using similar similar materials to the bungalow, a mixture of render and brick for the walls, and it's it's completely normal in its dimensions and design. So quickly to mention, there's 2 amended conditions. So these have been amended since the report was sent out. Firstly, there's a condition requiring electric vehicle charging points to bring it in line with policy SP1, and we've also when the report was sent out, there was a condition requiring details of the garage to be provided. Because those have been provided, and as you've just seen them, that condition has been removed. So the main issues to be addressed here. The first one is, the principle of development and its compliance with national and local policies. So there's a couple of things relevant. I mean, it's within the main built-up part of market deeping, and so the NPPF it specifically encourages infill development of this type. To quote exactly what it says, local planning authorities should support the development of windfall sites through their policies and decisions. And then it emphasises the next bit, it says, giving great weight to the benefits of using suitable sites within existing settlements for homes. So that's national planning policy. And when it comes to the South of Stephen local plan, policy SB2, it supports development, and I quote, it supports development which maintains and supports the role of the 3 market towns of Stanford, Bourne and the Deepings. That will be allowed provided that it does not compromise their nature and character, sorry. And also there's policy SP3, which deals with infill development, and that such development is supported in settlements such as market deeping, but with 2 provisos: that it shouldn't harm neighbours' amenity, and also that it shouldn't harm the character and appearance of the areas. And so the recommendation is that this proposal meets all of those. So other issues, yeah, I mean, because it's set well back from the front of the site, it wouldn't be particularly prominent, and you can see in the comments of the council's historic buildings consultant that they take a view, and I would concur with this, that it won't do any harm to the setting of the listed building, and it wouldn't do any harm to the character and appearance of the area. Yeah, as regards highway issues, the applicants have amended the design of the site, moving that vehicle entrance to the northwest. So this has improved the pedestrian visibility displays, and highways have no objections to it on that grounds. Yeah, I've already touched on the surface water risks. The outline approach set out by the applicant is that they'd use permeable paving for the parking space and driveway. They'd use a sustainable drainage system with crates so that water wouldn't flood off the site but would be retained for a time. The ground floor of the bungalow would be raised and suspended, so that would allow water to freely kind of percolate into the ground under the building. I've also proposed a condition removing permitted development rights for hard surfaces. I mean, I've done that so that in future someone couldn't come along and just tarmac the whole parking and turning area and causing water to run off and affect neighbouring properties. Yeah, I mean, touching on residential amenity, again, it's a bungalow, it's single story, and it's set back from neighbouring dwellings to such a degree that it's not going to cause loss of light and so forth. There are dormers on the northwest facing side. These are set back from the houses to the northwest. I mean, I acknowledge that they do look out of the middle of neighbours' gardens, but the most important part of the gardens, immediately adjacent the rear of the houses, that wouldn't be overlooked to any degree. And in areas where there's kind of typical suburban densities of houses, it's actually quite useful. You generally expect a good degree of privacy at the immediate rear of a house. As you walk down the garden towards the middle of the back garden, you'll find that it's typically overlooked by the houses on either side, and that the privacy isn't so good. So any loss of privacy there is really within the limits that we'd expect to see. And just to say that there's a condition recommended removing permitted development rights for any additional dormers or roof lights, and that just means that if they want to add additional dormers or roof lights that might compromise neighbours' privacy, they have to make another planning application. So in view of all of those, it's recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Stephen. Just wait for the presentation to go back again, Stephen.
Right, maybe I need...
There's nothing to see right now, all the presenters. So how do we get back to seeing?
What I might do is I might completely show my close the presentation. I don't know if that helps.
That's it. That's the one.
Okay. Good. Sorry about the slight hitch there.
No problem, Stephen. Okay, so we have.
Bob, I haven't got that one.
You haven't got which one, Jackie?
I haven't got anything except a black screen.
Then you need to speak to Sean, who is the IT guy. I'm not going to try and tell you how to do it because I'll probably mislead you. So can you give Sean a ring?
I haven't got his phone number.
Jackie, is there a little button that says hide stage?
Yes.
If you press on that, you'll see us all again.
All right. Yep, got you all.
Lovely.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Shelley.
Remember that.
The local member, Councillor Moran, asked us, excuse me.
Sorry, yes, Bob, do you want me to speak now or after the committee have asked their questions?
No, Virginia, just let me make a couple of comments, please, and then I'll call upon you to speak. I think it needs to be clearly understood this is an exception, and I put that down to perhaps a member not understanding procedure for speaking at planning committee. So I'm treating this as an exception, and I would ask that it goes in the minutes that it is an exception and doesn't become a standard practice. And I will ask through Martha for the appropriate officer to write to all members of the committee, reminding them of the procedures if they wish to speak at planning committee. So with that preamble, Virginia, please feel free to address the committee.
Yeah, I appreciate your indulgence, Bob, very much. The Town Council has a lot of reservations about this application, mainly because we had a similar back garden application for a bungalow, although that was a true bungalow. We don't consider this to be a bungalow, despite it being described as that, which was a bungalow to be positioned behind a bungalow in a traffic calmed road, which is obviously very quiet because the speed bumps are so huge, and that was refused. We now have an incredibly large property. It's approximately 4 or 5 times the size of the existing property on the plot. We're concerned about the line of sight. I appreciate they've moved the entrance slightly, but that is an incredibly busy bit of road into Market Deeping. It's very straight and people whiz along there. There's nothing we can do about it. They just drive like lunatics down there. And I'm very concerned that during construction there's going to be trucks trying to get out of that narrow entrance, which will in effect have to be on the road before they can see to their left. They'll also have to pull out quite widely to turn left. And then because it's 3 double bedrooms, there's going to be numerous cars. There's not just going to be 3 cars, there'll be more than that, trying to get out of there. The officer mentioned that in the plan, any development shouldn't harm the name as amenity. The occupants of the existing property, with the original plan, they were just losing 90% of their rear garden. What's now happening is on top of that, they're losing half of their front garden as well. The person who is in that property and renting that property is in no position to object, obviously because the owner of the property to be developed is her landlord. We're so concerned about this disparity between backyard development that the Town Council is intending to invite the officer to come to Market Deeping Town Council, just explain to us in words of 1 syllable exactly what the difference is, which means one is refused for the type of property that we're desperate to have,
That
and
is-
yet the other one appears to be absolutely fine. So that's all my points really, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Virginia. So we now move on to questions to the case officer, please, Shelley.
We have a question from Councillor Robert Reid, followed by Councillor Penny Milnes.
Councillor Reid, Robert, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The officer in his presentation mentioned the subject of no dropped curb. It never ceases to astound me how people can put forward an application of such investment without a dropped curb, and whereby which it's the officer has shown at the front the paved area and not allowing it to have any hard standing conditions, i.e. tarmacking. But I've looked time and time. Is the application? So the question to the officer: does the application still not have a dropped curb, and is it not possible to condition a dropped curb? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, the understanding of both myself and the local highway authority is that it would have a dropped curb, and that would be when I showed the site plan, you know, that would be at the point at which the driveway meets the road. So, you know, the local highway authority would have made their comments on that basis. I'm aware it doesn't have a dropped curb at the moment. At the moment, there's a driveway and no dropped curb, but the proposal would involve a dropped curb, yeah.
Sorry, just for clarity then, so the application does require, or the conditions require, that a dropped curb be put to access the driveway?
Well, I think in cases like this, when you show a vehicle access in the way it's been shown on the site plan, it's understood that there's a dropped curb there. I mean, I've dealt with other applications of this type, and we don't usually condition it. It's implicit in the site plan, I believe.
Yeah. Can I just step in there,
yes, please,
Chair?
yeah.
Is that all right, Bob?
Yeah, fine.
Sorry, Chairman. Just pointing towards page 106, there is a reference there in the notes to the applicant that the development would require the formation of a new access, and the applicant needs to ensure that the drop curb is in line with the new access. So those works would require approval of the Highway Authority under the Highways Act. So I think it is implied that there would be a drop curb, and there'd be those other controls to control the detail of that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that explanation, Jeff. Yes, it is there on paragraph 2, well, penultimate paragraph on page 106. Thank you. Councillor Milnes, Penny, please.
Yes, the question to Stephen, please. I wonder if we could go back to the photographs of the site, because we haven't been able to have a site visit, and I feel that the photographs don't identify the narrow nature of the actual site. It shows a lot of lawny area, because I think some of those back gardens have semi-joined together. Can you just point out exactly the boundary on those photographs for us, please? And then may I come back with some more questions, Bob? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to try and get the photos back up. So could you just...
Yeah, carry on, Stephen.
Okay.
Not appeared yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it has now.
Okay, so, I mean, you can see the narrow nature of, I mean, that satellite photo shows that it's quite narrow. I mean, as regards the dimensions of the house itself, to be 20 metres deep and 7.1 metres wide. So if we go to say the photos taken, I mean, I'd acknowledge, that photo is taken with my mobile phone, and without getting too much into the technicalities of it, they have, quite a wide angle lens, and they tend to make everything look further away and so forth. I think, that makes the site seem very wide. It's, if you were standing on the site, it's somewhat, you'd actually feel it was somewhat narrower than shown in the photo. I think that would be fair to say, but I think you get the best impression if I go back to that. With that, you can see its width in relation to the other houses surrounding the area. I don't know if that helps at all.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, if we go back to the photograph that you took with your mobile phone, we all know the problem with that, don't we? I suspect, if you could just confirm for us, that there are actually 3 gardens there, with the site being at the far left-hand side. Is that correct?
I think you see. I'm not sure about the land ownership at the left-hand side, but yeah, I think that's correct. Yes. Yeah, yeah. So yes, correct. It's this strip of land here. Yeah, I think that it shows at least 2 gardens. If I go back to this one. It doesn't show the garden belonging to the listed building to the southeast. That's on the other side of the trees that are in the later photo.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve, for the benefit of us all, because obviously not being able to do site visits, this is important, isn't it, that we make sense of the photograph. I just want it pointed out that I think there are 3 gardens there. It's getting to the very narrow nature of those 3 gardens, and the narrow nature of putting a property on that left-hand side. I suspect the trees and the fencing are the boundary with the listed building, and then you've got the garden spreading across to the right, which belong to the terraced houses on the front. And I think, looking at that, there must be 3 gardens there.
Can I just interject there? Sorry, Councillor Milnes. Steve, would you mind just going back to the aerial photograph you just showed? I'm just seeking a bit of clarification. If you look on there, the application site, the northern edge of the red line, if you look just beyond that, there is quite a prominent hedge feature in sort of between the sort of the southwestern edge of north of, and that's it. Well done, Steve. So there's quite a prominent hedge feature. If you then go back to the photograph, and I think that shows that's onto the second property. That's the edge of the second property. If you go back to and I think that's the hedge line you can see there. So I think it's actually two properties.
It's 2 properties, yeah.
Yeah. Just for clarification.
Thank you very much. So thank you. That just highlights that it's not, the site isn't the full width of the photograph. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you, Penny. Next, any further questions?
Sorry, Bob, I did ask if I could just ask another question or 2. Going on to Steve again, what you said, can we try and identify whether this is infill or backland? Now, we've had this argument before, haven't we, on SP3? And in, the NPPF, they talk about building.
So the question is, Penny, don't let's get into debate. Question: is it backland or is it infill?
Well, it's both basically. It's it is at the rear of houses, but it's it's also infill development. It's certainly the key thing is it infill development as defined by policy SP3, and if I just bring up the wording of that, if you can bear with me for a second.
How can it?
Is it within a substantially built up frontage or a redevelopment opportunity? So it's not at the edge of a settlement, it's behind a substantially built up frontage, and it requires it to be within the main built up part of the settlement, which it is. And then the other two main requirements of SP3 are that it doesn't harm residential amenity of neighbours, and that it doesn't, well, there's a number of things included under Part B, that it shouldn't extend the pattern of development beyond the existing built form, and it's in keeping with the character of the area and sensitive to the setting of adjacent properties. So, it's the key thing is that it's infill development as defined by policy SP3. And, I'd also remind that policy SP2, which I touched on earlier, again, it states that, development which maintains and supports the role of the three market towns of Stamford, Bourne and the Deepings will be allowed, provided that it does not compromise their nature and character. So both that and the NPPF, they support development within the boundaries of existing settlements.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Maybe we can debate that, Bob.
Yeah, you can do.
Issue.
We're just trying to keep it to questions rather than.
Okay.
Please. Okay. Any further questions to the case officer, please, Shelley?
Yes, we have questions from Councillor Crawford, followed by Councillor Dilks.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford. Helen, please.
Thank you. I've changed my mind. I think I wish to speak in the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Councillor Dilks. Phil, please.
Thank you. My first question I think has been cleared up, and I'm pleased it has, because that picture did appear to be very misleading about the width of the site. I hear what you're saying about that it's probably 2 gardens widths. It does seem to be more than that, I've got to say, and it's probably 3 at least gardens width.
Can we get to a question, Phil?
Yes, I apologise.
Those can be made in debate, please.
Yes, I apologise. Thank you. Oh yes, my question was on the moving of the road, the driveway, sorry, has been moved away slightly from the listed building, so that you've got better visibility. How far away from it has it been moved, please?
Yeah.
What is the distance?
I can't give you. I don't actually have the exact distance to hand. I mean, it's shown in the.
It only appeared to be a foot. Not much more than a foot, or maybe 2.
It's more than that, but I think it's slightly less than 2 meters.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'd be more than a couple of feet, but it's less than 2 meters, I believe.
Okay, Shelley, any further questions, please, to the case officer?
Yes, we've got Councillor Rosemary Cabery-Brown.
Oh, thank you, Rosemary. Councillor Cabery-Brown, Rosemary, please.
Well, I'm not quite sure. I think perhaps I better put it forward in debate, actually.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Not a question debate.
Okay, I see Councillor Harris has come up. Is it a question, Harris?
Mr. Chairman, what I would like to ask the officer, what is the actual footprint of the bungalow? Because obviously, the width, the way I look at it from the last picture you did, it takes both of the numbers 29 and number 31's back garden. You've taken with your picture. Is that true, or will there will be a demarcation? And unless that whole of the back garden that you showed is on the ownership on number 31.
I mean, it's
the footprint of the building, Steve.
Yeah, it's 20 meters deep and 7.1 meters wide, so it's only taking up the back garden of number 31 itself. It would fit within that plot. So it's a relatively narrow, long footprint. 7.1 meters wide. It's wide enough to provide decent living conditions for the occupants, but it's quite a long, narrow bungalow, and it fits. It's no wider than the houses in that short terrace to the front. Put it that way.
That would be very cramped. The rooms would be very cramped, small, even though they're double.
Make those points in debate, Harris, please. We move on to questions. Councillor Bellamy.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Just one question. I'm not quite sure whether I've missed something. Where's the parking for number 31?
Yeah, there are 2 spaces for number 31, and they're towards the rear of number 31, but kind of in front of the new bungalow.
Yeah.
So they're at the rear of the back. There's number 31, and then there'd be a back garden, and then there'd be 2 parking spaces belonging to number 31.
Yeah, well, it's a point of debate. Thank you.
Okay, David, thank you. Shelley, are there any more members wishing to put questions to Stephen?
No one has indicated, no.
Mr. Chairman, I indicated a long time ago in the chat.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Selby, that doesn't seem to have come through onto my list. Apologies.
Okay, Hind, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you very much, Stephen, for your presentation. I also shared the concerns of Robert, Penny and Phil as well. My question is, when does a bungalow not become a bungalow? Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think generally it's, a bungalow could have dormer windows and roof lights, and still be a bungalow. You can do a loft conversion to a bungalow, and it might well look quite a bit like the proposal under consideration, but I would still call it a bungalow. If you were debating as to whether you'd call it single story or 2-story, it would often be referred to as 1.5 story, something like that, but I would certainly always still refer to it as a bungalow.
Thanks, Stephen. Any further questions to the case officer, Shelley?
None indicated, no.
Thank you. Can we then move on to debate, members? Any members wishing to contribute to a debate? Shelley, please.
There doesn't appear to be any indicated either, no.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I wish to go in debate.
Yes, then Rosemary.
Right, first and foremost, can I say thank you for the presentation. I think you've done wonders with a very small piece of land. It beggars belief, in my opinion, that somebody can consider putting living accommodation with 3 double bedrooms, which could mean 6 adults, having 12 cars, if each one has a car, going in and out of that very small bit of garden. I'm not opposed to infill, and I'm not opposed to backland, but on this occasion, I think it is absolutely appalling that somebody is trying to put a so-called bungalow into that small amount of space. I also think it's extremely dangerous for when you've got people, lorries with building materials going in and out of that driveway. In order to do either a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn, they're going to have to come right out into the centre of the road before they actually get their back end anywhere out onto the road. I'm sorry, I know we're short of housing, but in this instance, I'm afraid I will not be voting for this at all. I think it is dangerous. I think it could be unsightly for the village, and I just don't agree with it. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my opinion. I think somebody's trying to put probably something very large into a pocket handkerchief, just in order to say they've got they own more property and they're going to live in one, then eventually they'll be selling it on. Sorry, as far as I'm concerned, I have to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please, Shelley.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
Councillor Milnes, Penny, please.
Oh, yes, thank you. Well, I agree with Rosemary. I have got to say, I'd like to argue infill or backland. I think that's very arguable that it's not infill, but we need that long debate on it. Infill has always been, to me, a gap in the frontage, not somewhere where just a shared access goes. So it is backland and it is garden land. It's not previously developed land. So there are issues to me here of the narrowness of the site and those long back gardens behind terraced properties where this really is incongruous. It's sporadic, it's just stuck in there. And I do think it is overdevelopment. And I think we've got to look here at the principle of development on the nature and character of that little area. Those properties have long gardens, that's how they are, that's the nature of that little area. It's not being developed in a planned way. And whilst Market Deeping, you know, is one of our larger market towns, we have got a lot of allocated land. We really need to be developing in this way. And so I think there are some arguments that it's contrary to policy on character and nature of the principle of development and amenity of the neighbouring gardens in that terraced row. I think the photograph, Steve, I know it's not your fault, but it just doesn't give a true representation, as if, you know, if we'd all got fences there, we would have seen it a lot better, just how stuffed in, as Rosemary puts it, this development would be. And I think the height, you know, 1.5 stories there is a point that Virginia Moran picked up on with bungalows, or whether it's a house or 1.5 story. But I think the main thing is overdevelopment and against the nature of that particular area.
Thank you, Penny. Next speaker, please, Shelley.
Councillor Helen Crawford.
Councillor Crawford. Helen, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to agree with Deeping Parish Council on page 97, 5.43. You know, this is a chalet type building, not so much a bungalow. I know the definition of a bungalow, it can have a first story. But the pitch of the roof is totally not in keeping with the other buildings around. It's overdevelopment, it's in a very narrow site. On the previous application, the highway said it was were against it because of the coming in and out. But how come 15 years later the amount of traffic will have increased no end for the egress of coming out of that site? I'm not happy with it at all. I think it's definitely overdevelopment and not in keeping. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please, Shelley.
Councillor Harish Bisnow Singh.
Councillor Bisnow Singh, Harish, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I agree with the previous speaker, with Penny Mills and also Helen Crawford. If I raise exactly the point I was going to raise on paragraph 5.4.3, you know, I fully agree with the town council. This is a pity. It will be a loss of a back garden. It's a loss of it's a infill, a back garden development, and which is in a very narrow strip of land. This is really cramming the garden. This will set a precedence for all the further long, nice garden that is there for future development. So I am naturally averse to back garden development, and I agree for the reason that is been given for the previous speakers. I can't support this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Harish. The next speaker, please, Shelley.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman. I have just noticed, and my apologies for the delay, I see that the meeting has now gone over 3 hours. Are members wishing to continue?
You are absolutely right, and that's my fault for not picking it up, Shelley, not yours. Could I have a proposition that we continue the meeting to the end, please?
Move that, Mr. Chairman.
Bill, seconded, please.
Me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you for that, Shelley. So the next speaker is?
So we've got Councillor Ian Selby would like to speak again, please, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Selby. Ian, please.
Speak again. It's debate. First time I've spoken in debate. But you're quite right, Shelley. My name didn't come up during when I asked for questions. I don't know why, but I did press the send to request. Anyway, yeah, when I first read the report, Mr. Chairman, I didn't like this application, I have to say. At the very least, I'm going to be abstaining on this. But the access, it really is not very good. It's I would like to bet that your vehicle can be stuck out 2 foot on the road and you still can't see what's coming down the other side of the road. That's what I would like to bet is the case on this. Same with Penny with regarding the width of the garden at the back. It is questionable. It's very difficult to show from those photographs the width of the garden. And I'm not being funny when I say this, Mr. Chairman, but really for me, this is an application that you really need to view in person with a site visit. And I can't make a judgment on passing this, especially the entrance, without actually seeing it. But also, I have to say, just to say, I feel sorry for the kiddies next door when they're playing football in the garden. It's always going to be a case of, can I have my ball back, please? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ian. Next speaker, please, Shelley.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
Councillor Dilks, Phil, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think most people have said what I would say, and I support, what most members have said. I note there are strong objections, not just from the town council, but there's local residents' objections as well. I also note what we were told earlier, that a similar application was recently rejected. To me, I take what people say about the giant bungalow. It's a bungalow, but not as we know one. It's 6.4 metres high. That's over 20 foot in real money. It's a 4-bed bungalow right in the middle of this, and whilst I'm pleased that we did question the width of the garden, at first it looked as if there was plenty enough width in that garden when I looked at but I appreciate it's because of the nature of the phones taking the pictures, makes it look very wide angle. And when you actually look at the plan in our paperwork, it's difficult to see, but it does appear that the footprint is pretty much full width of what they've got there, full width of the garden, and under those trees, it does appear to me, now the access, as people have already raised it, but I was concerned how far away from the listed building has the access been moved, and of course it does take up half the front garden of the existing house, the person that rents that house. But what worries me, as Ian Selby said, you have to have your car halfway out into the road before you can see what's coming. Even I suspect with the way it's been moved slightly away from that. And I noticed what the highway says. Oh, there's other houses around here with driveways rather similar. There haven't been any accidents. The point is, those are existing. Why should we create another one, another possible problem? And what would happen? What would happen over a period? Would the driveway sort of move slowly back to? I know we can only approve or refuse what's before us, but I just wonder if the driveway had slipped back to next to the house to get the front garden back again. I do worry about this one, Mr. Chairman, but I think most people have said that too. So thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Before asking for the next speaker, Shelley, I did notice Jeff Upton wished to come in and say a word or two. Jeff?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm just trying to pick up on the variety of comments that have been made in the debate. Obviously, there's a clear concern or concerns expressed regarding the proposals. Let me get my video sorted out. Apologies, Chairman. Yeah, there's clearly a range of concerns set out. I think both the report and Stephen, in response to questions, set out relevant policies and considerations, particularly around the obviously the infill policy that's in the local plan and the relevant provisions of the MPPF regarding paragraph 68 and that desire to promote development in sustainable locations, etc. Given the broad range of topics, I just wanted to sort of highlight really that policy DE1, and I think it picks up quite a range of members' concerns, does look at the character of an area and amenity issues. And I know should members want to raise formally their concerns with the proposal, it might be that area that members might want to reflect on. So policy DE1, I think, probably captures a lot of the concerns that members have raised, and I just really wanted to provide that input at this stage because I can see there's a range of concerns with where that pulls it together. I'm not sure, on the technical side, with the sort of highway concerns that have been raised, whether that's an area to explore too much further in terms of concerns. I note them, but my sort of input really would be DE1 perhaps captures a lot of the concerns raised around the character of the area and the level of development and those neighbouring amenity issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Shelley, next speaker, please.
No further speakers have indicated, Chairman.
Thank you. I thought I'd seen Councillor Reid come up on my screen.
Yes,
No?
that's correct, Chairman.
I thought I had.
Literally just come through on mine. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. Councillor Reid. Robert, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to voice an opinion that it's a shame the neighbourhood plan isn't further developed for market deeping at the moment. I'm surprised in a way there hasn't been more debate as to infill, overdevelopment, building in back gardens. It's a challenge that as a group of caring, responsible members that we are, that we have to meet this challenge on several occasions, and on some occasions we lose the argument of overdevelopment. But you've got to put yourself in the also into consideration of the other two residential houses, let alone the tenant, that they're going to have a bungalow in their back garden, next to them in their back garden. And do we want backland stroke infill development all over Market Deeping with developments in back gardens? No, don't be silly. Of course we don't. We don't want it in Bourne. We don't want it anywhere. Infill, where there's room for a driveway to go to a piece of ground at the back that could make a development, is fine. But this isn't. This is actually building in a back garden. I'm really quite surprised that the application has come forward the way it has. It was refused in 2004. largely on access. I understand that the access has been moved, and I understand why there will have been professionalism employed in moving the access, because that would hopefully arrive this application where it is today with us, which is subject to conditions for approval. But it doesn't get away from the mindful problem that we have with development in back gardens, and I'm sorry, I wouldn't support this application here any more than I'd support it anywhere else in the whole of the district. And I just, albeit subject to approval, I really struggle with why that it's compliant. And I just feel that SP3 has not been, well, I just don't know how SP3 actually is compliant with infill of development. You know, and I don't risk of repeating myself. It causes me a huge amount of concern, not just for this application, but indeed for applications that will come before us in the future. I know that another committee member that neighbours me in Bourne has shared similar circumstances and problems within Bourne, just the same as we have seen it here. So I am not in support of the application. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Robert. Are there any further speakers, Shelley?
Yes, we've got councillors Helen Crawford and Penny Milnes.
Councillor Crawford again, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Quite agree with Councillor Reid. Going back to SP3 D, if you read it, it says it does not extend the pattern of development beyond the existing build form, and is in keeping with the character of the area and is sensitive to the setting of adjacent properties. Well, I'm sorry, it doesn't. The character of the adjacent properties is that you have a long, narrow garden. That is the character of those buildings. People are going to be overlooked in their gardens. The picture of the roof, the design of it isn't in keeping. I'm sorry, but I think SP3 hasn't been looked at closely enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Jeff, sorry if I catch you on the hop. Do you want to make a comment on SP3? Please.
Yeah, no problem, Chairman. Thank you for that. Yes, I think SP3 does have various obviously elements to it. You've got A to D, so if we just run through that as set out in the report. So in terms of substantially within the built-up frontage, it doesn't actually clearly define there. I think I think officers have looked at this quite carefully. It doesn't clearly define. Obviously, the access point here is within that built frontage. It doesn't actually within the policy go further than that to say that. And I think picking up on the previous scheme in 2004, I think Stephen mentioned that was actually further forward, so it would have been in line with the existing terrace, which would have had its own impacts on both, well, different impacts clearly, being that further forward, both visually more prominent, as well as other attendant impacts on the listed building, etc. So this one, you know, the policy there doesn't say that the building itself has to be within the substantially built up frontage. An element of the proposal, which in this case is the access point, is within that frontage, that substantially built up frontage. That's criteria A on SP3. B is within the main built up area. Apologies, just noticed I haven't got my video on again. Yeah, and B, of criteria B of policy SP3 references within the main built-up area part of the settlement, and obviously officers have put that forward quite genuinely because it is within the built-up area. This is potentially the point that members are making clearly in terms of concerns today about causing harm or unacceptable impact on the occupiers' amenity of adjacent properties. And I think Stephen quite carefully in his presentation talked about the the light given to those first floor windows and the outlook through roof lights. So no, and also where it's located relating to the backs of existing properties, and there is quite a separation distance there. So we didn't feel there was an unacceptable impact on amenity. And then next was extending the pattern of development beyond the existing built form and in keeping with the character of the area and sensitive to the setting of adjacent properties. And again, that was looking at the wider area, and I think Stephen pointed out there is other development to the rear of frontages to the south of the proposed development site. So in terms of considering that wider context, it was felt that the character of the area and sensitivity to adjacent properties was met. So that's really just talking through on your prompting and offer, Chairman, the criteria on SP3 and how they've been taken into account in terms of the report and the recommendation for supporting the proposal that's in front of you today. Clearly, members, that is a recommendation. Members have got unresolved concerns potentially. So I just, in responding to your offer of SP3 and how that recommendation has come forward, that hopefully gives you a bit of context for that recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Jeff a question? Yes, just on that specific thing?
Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, I'm awfully sorry. I didn't quite understand what you were saying about A in that. I've got it in front of me, and it says it will be supported provided that, and A is within a substantially built-up frontage, which it clearly isn't, and or redevelopment opportunity, previously development land, which it clearly isn't. So it doesn't meet A, does it? Can you just clarify?
Yes, Phil, certainly. I think the area, as I mentioned, it is there's a substantially built-up frontage, and part of the proposal, which is the access point and the way through into the rear, is within that frontage, and the policy doesn't actually go further than that and clearly define that the built form has to be within that frontage. So it is a debatable point, but clearly the policy doesn't drive down to say that the building has to be within that built-up frontage. That's a position, Phil.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Jeff. I don't expect an answer now, Jeff, but I've not picked up this before, where it's talking about an SPD being prepared to assist in this type of application. So I think we need to probably follow that up, Robert, Jeff and myself, to see where that has got to, and that might help if it's well on its way to production. It might help in future applications of this nature. Thanks for your input there. Shelley, any further members wishing to speak in debate?
I've got down here Councillor Penny Milnes. I don't know if I've missed her or not.
I haven't called her. So Penny, Councillor Milnes, Penny, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm referring back. There's been a recent appeal decision on Harrowby Lane. And I think, we do have a good case here that it is against the character and nature of this area, that it's at odds, and I'm using the inspector's words here. I know we shouldn't bring them right across, but I think it's applicable. It's at odds with the built form of the surrounding area, and it's not in keeping with their context. And I agree with Jeff, absolutely. DE1 covers a lot of our issues, and that's backed up by section 12 of the NPPF. But I also think we could consider SD1 and this SP3. I still think, you know, common sense and most definitions of infill say it is where you're going to build in a small gap within a built-up frontage, and that where we're putting it at the back is backland development. And it does affect the amenity of the neighbours, I think, but we have got, you know, this amenity problem in that narrow gardens. This bungalow will be, or chalet or whatever it is, will be built right up to the boundaries. And I think, you know, we can look at those policies quite well. Also, the NPPF, you know, they're not keen on garden grabbing, are they? So this is what this is, and I think it's just too tight a site. It's, and I'm going to propose we refuse it. I think also SP2 talks about the character and nature. So I think we could debate, you know, that which of these policies we use. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 policies in the NPPF.
Okay.
Please, Mr. Chairman, can I second it?
You're going to second the... Well, yes, indeed. So we've had it proposed by Councillor Milnes and seconded by Rosemary Cadbury-Brown to refuse. Are you ready to move to a vote, members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Can we just be clear, Chairman, that this proposal is on the noted on the recommendations that Councillor Milne has put forward, the four reasons, please?
Well, I was going to say, or ask Jeff or Martha to give us some indication of whether the reasons being given in debate here are sufficient reasons, and do we have to go through the cooling off period, which is, in a sense, well, I suppose the question I'm asking, Jeff, is are the reasons given by committee members acceptable reasons for refusal, and do the officers agree that they are? Can we go there first, because that will lead us to the next stage. Jeff?
Yep, just making sure I get my video on this time, Chair. Sorry about that, Chairman. Yes, I think, as I understand it, in terms of process, if there's a potentially a vote against the recommendation, that there is that period for cooling off, if that's the right expression. But for me, as I mentioned earlier, the issues around character is one area, and in terms of amenity is the other. I feel obviously character is one that is a debatable point. I've mentioned the wider area. In terms of other development to the rear of the frontage, so there is a mix there in terms of development to the rear, but members may have a particular view on that, and an element of subjectivity in that consideration. So that's an area worthy of exploration. And amenity, I think we set out earlier, the less sensitive in terms of the assessment, the less sensitive nature of that area of garden, which is remote from the rear elevations and what is generally seen as a more sensitive part of the amenity space of a neighbouring property, which would be immediately to the rear of a property. This those proposed properties set further away, some distance from that rear elevation and immediate rear garden area. So in terms of the amenity aspect, again, that is subjective to a certain extent, but in terms of what I can see from the plans of this proposed development, it would be a less sensitive matter in the planning assessment. So yeah, there's an element of subjectivity, I think, around both of those issues, but those are my views, that character and amenity potentially areas to reflect on and could be taken forward. Hopefully that helps, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to go to Martha now, because I just want clarification, Martha, that if the the members are minded to refuse, if we say minded, then we have to come back in 5 days' time with reasons. The question I'm asking is, are the reasons given by committee today sufficient for us to refuse it now, or do we still have to go through the protocol of minded to refuse? Jeff, you say that's what we should do, regardless of the majority of the members of the committee being basically unanimous in their reasons for refusal.
Chairman, in accordance with the virtual procedure, yes, yep. At 12.66, it says where a proposition is made to refuse an application contrary to officer recommendations, the cooling off period will be invoked.
Fine. So the wording of the motion to refuse then has to be minded to refuse.
Yes, Chairman.
So Penny, are you happy to move that? Put that in your proposal, minded to refuse?
Minded to refuse, yes, absolutely. I think it's always a good idea to have the cooling off. I think it focuses what we want to say, and yeah.
But Rosemary Cabry-Brown, are you happy with the word, inserting the word minded? So we're compliant?
If we've got to be compliant, excuse me. If we've got to be compliant, yes. Okay. Normally, my answer would be no. Yeah, I don't think, as a planning committee, we have to. We shouldn't have to go through all these various steps. If it's a unanimous decision to refuse something, I honestly
understand, Rosemary, but we've got to be compliant with our own protocol and constitution on these virtual meetings.
Yes, as I said, in that case, definitely you'll have to put it in.
Thank you. Are members ready to move to a vote?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think we are.
I take that as a yes. So a vote for is for refusal, and a vote against is, well, you're either voting for refusal or you're against it. So a vote for is for refusal. Naomi?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chairman, sorry. Just to confirm, members, you'll be voting minded to minded to refuse is the proposition. Because that's against officer recommendations, it will be a recorded vote, just to make you aware. Okay. Councillor David Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Harish Bisnal-Singh?
Wholeheartedly for.
Councillor Helen Crawford?
For.
Councillor Phil Dilks?
Abstain.
Okay. Councillor Mike Exton?
Abstain.
Councillor Rosemary Cabry-Brown?
For.
Councillor Penny Milnes?
For.
Councillor Robert Reid?
For.
Councillor Ian Selby?
Abstain.
Councillor Jackie Smith?
For refusal.
Councillor Judy Smith?
Abstain.
And Councillor Bob Adams?
Oh, sorry, for refusal.
Thank you. To confirm, the proposition has been carried.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, members. We will have for members only, and that concludes the business of the agenda. I have nothing by way of urgent circumstances, so we'll close the formal part of the meeting. Shelley, if you will let the public go and officers, members will reconvene. Don't take yourselves out of this meeting, or we might have a hell of a job getting back into it. But if we can just have a quick 10-minute break and then reconvene at about 2 o'clock.
Chairman, I have to say I have another meeting that I am sort of virtually chairing at 2 o'clock, so I shall have to not be with you. But look forward to an update from you, Chairman, later in the day. Thank you.
Very good, Robert. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chairman.
The recording is stopped, has it, Naomi? We've closed the recording.